What up, everybody? I just realized I lost a few followers today. It makes sense, though. It makes sense, because a lot of my followers are Muslim, obviously, because of the Palestine content. And then a lot of Muslims are Sunni, and they don't support Assad. So, kind of bound to happen. The U.S. was going to launch the U.S. and the white and blue, which... It's so crazy that there are these people who support Palestine, but then also support the people who are trying to overthrow the Syrian government, which is one of the main governments opposed to the white and blue country. But, there's a lot of ideological incoherence out there, especially when religion's involved. Nothing against religion, but sooner or later, the U.S. was going to launch a regime change effort against Syria. And I was going to come out against it, and that was going to anger the Sunni Muslims in my audience. So it is what it is. I don't pander to anyone. Big fan, love your work. Thank you, OP the Pony. Thank you. Getting a BBL so the officers have something to look at during my deployment. USA. Based. Good luck with your deployment, brother, if that's real. I hope it's not too bad for you. I feel bad for Syria. They have to pick between Satan and Satan. Listen, I have criticisms of Assad, plenty. Not the Western liberal criticisms, like, he's attacking his own people. Like, civilians have definitely been harmed in the crossfire, but it's a civil war that's been backed by the Zionists, by NATO, and by the CIA, and the people he's fighting are Sunni extremist jihadists. But there are critiques of him economically, there are critiques of him militarily, there are critiques of him not going nearly far enough in resisting the white and blue country and U.S. imperialism. All these things are legitimate, but there's no comparison between Assad and the Zionist and U.S.-backed Sunni extremist groups that are terrorizing Aleppo right now. I mean, there are videos on the ground of people filming outside of their houses in Aleppo, and there's like ISIS style groups running around with weaponry. That's the kind of situation the people are in. It was much more peaceful, much more stable under Assad. So, but yeah, feel terrible for the people of Syria. Definitely agree. Assad has 10 times more bodies than those people. It's just a coalition of rebel groups. How can you even measure that? Because it's like, it's like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, al-Nusra, now the HTS. It's all these different groups that the U.S. and the white and blue country have stitched together, have welded together in order to overthrow the Assad government. If his numbers of people being unalived are higher, that just means he's winning the war against, and this is what's wrong with a lot of American leftists, is they have this fetish of defeat, right? They'll support an anti-imperialist government so long as the U.S. is successful in toppling them, like Gaddafi, right? People look back now and they're like, oh, it's so sad what happened to Gaddafi. Now the whole country's run by extremist groups. That's the same thing that'll happen in Syria. If these extremist groups are allowed to take over, it'll be disastrous for the people. There will be no central government. It'll be a terrible situation for all the civilians on the ground. When a government actually fights back, when they actually take up arms and crush these groups, Western leftists are like, oh my goodness, oppression. How could you oppress your people like this? It's like, well, they have to. Otherwise, the terrorists are going to run everything. Yeah. Well, I want to invite Haas to this stream, though. I'm not here to talk about Syria. We're here to debate liberals. Infrared Haas. I see people inviting to join as guests. We will certainly start bringing people up very soon. Don't you worry. Don't you even worry. Very, very soon. Trying to see if Haas is in here yet. Not yet. But yeah, please stick around. We'll start debating real soon. Juice Morph, let's go. Thank you. Does debating liberals really build class consciousness? Might not be the right approach, dog. Wow, thank you for all the W's, Juice Morph. W. I mean, Lenin sure did a lot of debating liberals. I was reading Materialism and Imperial Criticism today, and he was dissecting a lot of the liberalism that was pervading the Bolshevik Party and the Russian socialist movement at the time. And we actually have brought a lot of people to the ACP and to the movement by doing these debate streams, because we're able to point out the ideological incoherence of our haters. And I seem to be reaching a lot of people with communism on this app. But if you have a better idea of how to do it, let me know. But don't just critique what I'm doing. Give me a better solution, brother. I thought liberals were just people on the left of the political spectrum. What's wrong with that? No, liberals support capitalism. Liberals are those who support capitalism. On the American political spectrum, they're considered to be the left. But they're really only left on, cultural or social issues, on issues like abortion and whatnot. And economically, they're just as right-wing. And this has been the case since Bill Clinton, really. He was what they called a new Democrat. So he really moved the American Democratic Party to the right towards trickle-down economics. What's ACP on your hat? American Communist Party. Join up, acp.us. Do you think there will ever be accountability to the U.S. for supporting and allowing a G-side? Eventually. History has its unpaid debts, but, eventually there's going to be the dialectical backlash, and all the terror and destruction that the U.S. has wrought upon the rest of the world is going to have its backlash. I mean, even the ACP itself is a dialectical backlash to the corruption and the oppression and imperialism of the U.S. government. Like, it was only a matter of time before young people started reading the works of Karl Marx, educating themselves politically, understanding the system, deconstructing it, sharing it with their friends, and then organizing the fight against it. Like, in many ways, we are part of the dialectical backlash to the U.S. empire. So, who's your ideal candidate for 2028? Hazaldeen of Infrared, who should be here soon. He's probably pooping or something, honestly. Should I just start bringing some people up? I hope you make it to the Olympics, Eddie. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let's organize a fantasy league. Brother, I'm in 2 fantasy leagues already, and I can't do it. It's too much work for me to even do 2 of them. I appreciate you, though. That's a great idea. ACP Fantasy League, that would be fun. Eddie, what do you think about the 2024 election signaling the beginning of illiberalism? Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment. Young people especially are fed up with liberalism. If you go on X right now, Elon Musk's site, you will unfortunately see a lot of anti-liberal right-wing ideologies in massive, almost unbelievable numbers, which is scary. So it's not just communism that's growing, it's other illiberal ideologies. And, even the Maga movement represents a movement against liberalism. Thank you for the TikTok. So what's very clear from this election is that liberalism is dying. The Democrats and liberalism has been the hegemony for a long time. And people are sick and tired of it. They want something new. Trump was able to win with just a little bit of populist rhetoric, So thank you for all the stickers. Appreciate you all very much. Will you debate Harry Sisson? Yeah, I've called out Harry to debate repeatedly. And he never answers me. Go figure. I honestly think, I don't mean to make accusations. This is all speculative, but I imagine Harry's got to be getting some kind of money from some Democrat associated organization, or the Democrats themselves. I'd be very, very surprised if he wasn't being managed by one of these companies. Thank you for the finger heart. And if I was one of those companies and I was managing Harry Sisson's career, I would say do not debate Eddie Liger Smith. Don't debate Haz al-Din. Don't debate these people who actually know what they're talking about. It's not a good use of your time. Because we would very quickly be able to point out his ideological incoherence and offer, a different ideology and a different path to improving this system. And what Harry usually does is he debates random people on TikTok. He debates random Trump supporters who aren't that well educated. And if I'm a Democrat, right, I'm not, but if I was a Democratic strategist, I would feel like that's way more worth his time, right? That's a way better use of his influence for the party, is to debate random people who are uneducated and try to pull them towards liberalism, towards the Democrats, rather than debate people who are communists, who are more educated, who might make him look like a dummy and actually hurt the party. So that's what I imagine is going on there, but who knows? Who knows? Oh, there's Haas. Yeah, I've gone on Harry's stream to try and debate him. He's never accepted me, hasn't he yet? I haven't tried that hard, but... What's up? Yo.
Yo, what's up? What's going on?
How's it going?
Good. Yeah, let's see who's is the Starvos guy want to debate us? This is a debate stream, right?
Yeah, I made the title join if you want to debate, so.
All right, sure. Let's bring Stavros. What's going on, Stavros? What do you want to debate?
Yo, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say you should go on Warren Balog's and Eric Stryker's podcast, Award Strike.
Remember how I said, what do you want to debate? Remember how I said that and not what podcast do you want me to go on? Remember what I said, what did you want to debate? So let's not have any nonsense. Let's have actual people who want to debate, right?
Step up, folks. We want haters. Tell us why Assad is bad. Here we go. Yob.
Yo, what's up?
How's it going?
It's going good. I just want to come in here and say I'm a big fan. For watching all your videos.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. We're looking for debates right now, though. Appreciate the support, though. Zach.
Hello.
How is it going?
It's going well. How are you doing?
Great.
Good to hear. That's great to hear, brother. What are we chatting about today? What are we chatting about?
We're looking for debates. Sorry,
this
Zach.
is just some nonsense. People do want to debate us, it seems, or they have many bad things to say about us. And, we're looking for those people right now, I do believe that there are, what can I say on here? Like 3-letter agents. What can I say?
Yeah.
I do believe those forces are definitely responsible for a lot of the nonsense. All right, there's a guy in the thing. He's going, Vosh cooked y'all. All right, request. You request.
Yeah, Flame, come cook us. Come cook us like Vosh.
All right, the Rizzler, go ahead.
Hello.
Yo.
So my issue is, what exactly does communism propose to solve the ECP?
What are you talking about?
Markets are necessary for a functioning economy. You cannot just get rid of markets and expect to have a functioning economy. You can't.
Why not?
Because the mathematics deny it.
Do the mathematics right now off the top of your head.
And I can't. I can get you. Well, I'm not the one who's doing the mathematics here, but I've read interesting works on this topic.
Sounds like you're making it up then.
Well, the ECP is a real issue, and even communists themselves have conceded on this point. So,
like who?
How? Like who?
Yeah, which communist?
Well, Well, first, you look at the market socialists, first and foremost, they've conceded on this point. They've essentially said that there's no way we can have a planned economy, and that's why they're market socialists. So those are the first ones.
That's not accurate. The reason that most socialist countries have opened up the private markets is a way to get capital in the country and circumnavigate sanctions or embargo from the U.S. But also Walmart centrally plans their economy. Walmart, it's very possible to plan an economy, especially with modern planning technology.
You know what argument I haven't heard from these people is when I just say computers. When I just say computers, no one talks about it.
Right?
You don't know anything about computers, infrared.
Well, that's my response. Computers.
That's the issue. You don't know anything about computers. Computers cannot plan an economy.
Well, okay. I'll put it back at you. You don't know anything about math. I think math is more important as far as whatever claim you're trying to make. So if you know nothing about math, my lack of knowledge about computers is the least of your problems.
But that's your defense, computers. That's not really a defense you can use because computers cannot plan an economy that's always changing.
But why not?
Because because the supply and demand changes by the second, by the nanosecond.
Right, but the thing about cybernetics is that it's something that's sensitive to local changes and is able to translate those local changes into aggregate and macro decision making. So that's the whole point of cybernetics, is that it's supposed to be sensitive to very sudden dynamic changes. That's what computers are for. I mean, I don't know what computers aren't just like, they're not just sitting there off of the network. The implication is that they're part of a network.
Well, true, but how can you plan ahead in terms of how much
the idea isn't that the idea is not that you're always necessarily planning before the fact, but that planning is a constant fact of production, and the content and the variables put into the planning is dynamically changed according to changes.
You can't do that with capital-intensive industries. For example, with the oil industry, they plan ahead for 6-7 years in terms of how much capacity they have. You can't plan ahead for that. That's not certain things you can go ahead and compute. You just can't do it.
Didn't you just say they do that?
No, they plan. And it's reflected on their market capitalizations. You look at the performance of the oil and gas industry; it's completely underperformed.
No, you're right. Actually, Rizzler, this is a great example of why markets are no longer the primary basis of our economic necessity anymore. Because that's why I think we need gas, but. Yeah, you're right. It's not operating according to the logic of markets, and it's not operating according to the logic of profit. But it's nonetheless something necessary for a modern functioning civilization. That's why oftentimes it's something that's nationalized by the government.
But how do you go ahead and compute this? How do you go ahead and compute the oil demand for 6-7 years ahead into the future?
How are they doing it now?
They're not doing it good. They're not doing it good. They're trying their best, but they're not doing it good, and that's again reflected on their financial performances.
So it sounds like this isn't a problem, if it is at all, specific to socialism. It's just a general problem as far as oil is concerned.
It is a general problem, but the question is.
By the way, I don't believe you understand how the oil industry works, because
I do. I really do understand how the oil industry works.
If you knew how the oil industry works, you would understand that the so-called capacity has nothing to do with what they're actually able to do, but what they're currently doing on the basis of what they have already invested in extracting the oil from its reserves. So if they want to extract more oil, they can invest in it and thereby increase the capacity.
Well, it is a capital-intensive industry. I mean, you look at the Permian Basin right now, which has been flushed essentially out of all of its oil. You need better technology to get most of the, well, not most, but the rest of the oil that exists in the Permian Basin. So you need better and better technology, and you cannot achieve that with socialism. Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because socialism runs counter to productivity and innovation.
I don't think innovation was a problem in the Soviet Union. I think the problem was specifically about the lack of the willpower to actually convert their economy into an information economy, and that was due to bureaucratic reasons.
No, the issue was that they didn't take the China route, which is to liberalize. They didn't do that, and that's why they don't
You know,
exist
you want
anymore.
my honest opinion? A lot of people debate about this. If you want my honest opinion, can you mute yourself? This is feedback's crazy. If you want my honest opinion, the Soviets didn't need to liberalize like China did. Had the Soviets gone the OGOS way of computerizing the economy, they already had a world market, and they probably could have just jumped straight into a cybernetic form of socialist planning. That's my speculation, though, you know, but I don't think they necessarily had to have done what China did.
Not to mention the Chinese oil industry is largely state-owned and centrally planned.
Well, sure. Well, I don't know what you mean by centrally planned, but you look at China's economy in its totality, you can see that the vast majority of enterprises are actually private. You look
What
at
kind of enterprises? The capital-intensive industries that you're talking about are largely state-owned,
well, sure,
run according to the state central plan. So how is it impossible to plan
Well,
them?
these aren't plans, by the way. These are guidelines that the state puts out.
What's the difference between a
each year.
guideline and a plan? Sounds like the
Well,
exact same.
planning is more thorough and intricate. Simply giving out guidelines is not necessarily planning.
No, I mean, look, if
the
you knew
president
how
can
the
go ahead and
planning
put out.
worked in the Soviet Union, you would not say they did not intricately plan everything from the center. They had
They're just
enterprise.
simply giving out guidelines or saying, these are the things we hope
That's
to
more or
plans.
less, that's
that's
more
not-
or less what they did even in the Soviet Union. They didn't intricately plan every single enterprise at every local level. There was more of a guideline. That was-
These things aren't similar to what Cockshot presents. They're not similar to. They're just simple mere guidelines. And the president of the United States gives out guidelines to each department. Are you going to say that that's planning? Obviously not. Corporations give out guidelines of what they achieve. What are the guidelines?
I think the difference though is that China's guidelines are not like suggestions. They're things that are held. There's accountability for if they achieve them or don't achieve them. That's the main difference. Like you have to fulfill the goals, however vague they are, and they're usually not that vague, by the way. You have to fulfill them, or there's going to be a problem or a systemic, shakeup. Whereas, if the government is giving out guidelines, that's kind of advice. It's kind of a suggestion. It's not really the same.
And that's what China's guidelines are. They're simply suggestions.
No,
look at China's
they are
2020.
absolutely not suggestions. They're things that are actually implemented.
Very rigorous 5-year plans that are not comparable at all to regulations in the U.S., which are very weak and not strongly enforced. And we're done away. A lot of regulations were cut under Trump in his last 4 years. It's not comparable at all to China's 5-year plans.
Well, the issue that we're not my main point is this: China is really, I would even argue, China is more capitalistic than the United States of America.
Why?
Because, you look at the intense amount of regulation that's going on in the U.S., particularly within the banking industry, which has stagnated the amount of capital that our industries
Hold on,
have
can we
access
just
to.
establish something? The whole thing about the really complicated bureaucratic red tape is only a thing when you have a huge, overloaded private sector. When you have it like China, where the bank is state-owned, it's a national bank, and over 60% of the entire economy is state-owned enterprises, they don't have as much regulations and taxes, for that matter, because the government is able to pay for itself and more or less organize and plan the society in a neat, clean way without having to overcomplicate things.
You say 60% of China's enterprises are state-owned. You do realize that those 60% only produce about 40% of the nation's GDP.
No.
They're inefficient.
66% of the GDP in 2023 was from the state-owned enterprises.
Nope, I can get data that says the direct opposite of what you're saying right now.
Well, I can get data as well that says exactly what I'm saying.
Well, let's get both of our
And
data right
I'll tell
now.
you. I'll tell
Right
you
now,
why.
no, right now.
I'll
Let's
tell
go ahead
you.
and get the data.
Yeah, Eddie, if you want, link him the article by RTSG, which proved that the methodology of a lot of these sources that are claiming that it's like 40% or even 20% are not properly counting what constitutes a state-owned enterprise. They'll take enterprises that would be like 51% owned by the state and say that's private. So they have an extremely broad definition of what constitutes a private enterprise, which is why you're getting that 40% figure. But when the state actually controls it and has a controlling interest and manages and administers the enterprise, it's state owned. Even Lenin said all you need to control an enterprise is 1/3 ownership. That's all you need to control it by the state. So it depends on what you mean by state owned or state controlled.
Well, essentially, 100% of China's companies are state controlled, but we're talking about direct ownership here.
Not necessarily 100%. That's not true. But
no one can do what the big man. I mean, the big man Xi. If he says something, that's what goes.
right,
It's the big man's words.
right.
That's all that matters.
People
And
you need to understand this about China. All of the people in China, all of them, more or less. I mean, there's probably some exceptions from abroad, but basically, all of China grew up under the older generations, at least. They all grew up under Mao, under communism. They didn't come from some other, capitalist market era. No, they all grew up under the same system. So when the reform and opening up happened, and the so-called private sector takes off, it's like this is not really private. This is all part of an already extremely integrated and organized society where it's a given that the state and the government is extremely present in the economy. It's just nonsense to think that there's a kind of private interest like we have in the US with Rockefellers and Morgans and all these dynasties. It's like, no, they have a heavily integrated, organized society where more or less, it's not just that everything that Xi says goes, it's that it's a given that entrepreneurship has to be harmonious with the goals of society and with the wider functioning of society,
listen, I have to get going, but Trump 2024 or 2025 to 2028, I must say, we're going to accomplish a lot of great things, and I hope you two change your ways because it's getting ridiculous at this point. Thank you.
Well, I hope so too. Thank you for teaching us nothing. I hope you learned something.
I hope you change your ways yourself. All right, let's bring on S. Jones. What's going on, S. Jones?
Not much. I mean, the dude is utterly ridiculous, but I've come to the more recent conclusion that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are the biggest fundamental and functional cults.
All right. Well, that's a lot of yapping. No offense.
Thanks for your support, brother. We're looking for debates right now, though. That's it. I think this guy's a hater. Oh, well, now we got two in here.
Hi, how are you? Excuse me for my bad English, but I'm trying to explain you something about Syria. Like, I'm Syrian, so you're...
Excuse me. I mean, you need to come in here with a debate. Guy, go ahead.
I'm not debating, so you guys can kick me out.
Okay. At least he's honest.
Yemi, what's going on?
All right. I'll just let you invite him. What's up, Yemi?
All right, we got some Minecraft villager. Owen, go ahead.
What you got, Owen?
All right. Well, we got some awesome sauce. Go ahead. All right. Unapologetically, what's going on?
How you doing, gentlemen?
How are you doing? What do you want to debate
Greetings
about?
to you, man. I wanted to say I cannot believe my brother with the glasses. I'm on your like page or whatever.
Well, believe it, sir, because we're looking for debates, not looking.
Thank you for your support, friend. We're looking for debates right now, though. Free Palestine, hell yeah! Appreciate you.
We need again, I know not everyone here is a fan of Eddie. I know not everyone here is a fan of me. So where are these people? Why don't they step up to the task?
It's gotta be like the amount of people who spend all day.
All right, Bash Art. Bash Art, go ahead and explain what your problem is.
You are just Islamophobe. That's it.
Why am I? Hold on. Why am I Islamophobe?
Yeah, because it's a revolution. Like it's just like the people of Syria just want freedom.
Why
It's
don't
just
the
against
people?
the unjustice government.
Yeah.
So
let me. All right, Bash. Let me just quick question. And if you don't answer it right, or honestly, I'm just gonna kick you right away. So think about it. Right? Why aren't the people in Egypt or Jordan doing anything? Please answer it right.
Because we don't want your U.S. values, you assholes. The world is bigger than America. Just understand that. Just
Those are two of the most pro-U.S. Arab
Muslims.
countries.
Just
So
accept
why aren't they
that there's
attacking them?
Muslims. We want to live in the way that we
want to live and we are wanting the democracy and we are doing the uprising because we want the democracy because Bashar al-Assad is a dictator. But in King Abdullah in Jordan and in Egypt, al-Sisi, he is not a dictator. It just so happens to be that Syria is necessary for the resistance network that we're going to overthrow the dictator of Syria. Yeah, but in Egypt and Jordan, we don't care. It's okay because we're not being backed by NATO and Israel. All right. Anything else, bro? Anyway, Damien, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Damien. I'm from Mexico. I live in Canada. I have a bunch of questions about the communist American Party.
I have questions too, but we're here for debates. S. Jones, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually an issue I have with the Maga communist movement, and the major issue is Haas, and I'd even push this to Jackson Hinkle. I don't know Midwestern Marxists how far you push this, but like, why is it that on any functional level you think that linking the movement of communist or social movement with MAGA is going to have any type of real world implications besides just alienating people? And Haas, you have obviously been doing that throughout this live stream also. So how are you expecting to actually build a real fundamental movement if you can't actually talk to people? And more so than that, if your inherent starting point is to link yourself with Trump and corruption and bullshit. And by the way, I voted Jill Stein this election, so I'm not a Democrat. But yeah, I mean, it's very simple. Like it just from a marketing standpoint.
I wrote a whole article on it already, but I'll let Haas defend himself. My article is available on MidwesternMarks.com. I said everything I want to say.
Now Jank from TYT is saying everything. Just go listen to Jank from TYT, and he'll tell you.
He's based lately.
Simple, very simple. Go watch Hassan Piker's uncle tell you why MAGA is important and the differences between MAGA and Trump.
I mean, I'm actually talking about from a fundamental position of organizing. Like, if you want to say that MAGA has the ability to create a structural condition of organization, I do find it very problematic that it does alienate a lot of people on the left kind of instantaneously.
I think those people fall into two categories: class enemies and people who are angry at their parents. So if our message is for people to make up with their parents, I don't find that to be a problem. And as for the class enemies who are just PMC to the core, I don't really care what they think. Anything else?
My question is fundamentally, where is the structural condition of your argument that is supposed to bring about a class revolution? Like on a fundamental level, if you want to say that, like, okay, you're going to go with MAGA communism, how on a functional structural level does that concept and that idea begin to build a fundamental movement capable of making massive changes?
I'm falling asleep because you just took 35 seconds to say something that you could say in 5 seconds.
Cool.
So you asked about class revolutions. We don't actually create class revolutions. They are things that happen according to historical laws, and the goal of communists is to clarify them by giving them leadership in the form of correct class consciousness. We have been experiencing nothing but class revolutions in this country for quite a while now. What we don't have is the correct consciousness to clarify it. If you looked at it with a little bit of common sense, you would see that MAGA itself was a class revolution. It just was one that was led by false consciousness. So it's as simple as that, really.
Agreed.
Not all class revolutions lead to class dictatorships that are successful. They're not necessarily revolutions that have a clear goal that's reflective of what they actually are materially. They're oftentimes guided by false consciousness, which obscures their real causes and leads to, a furtherance and consolidation of the rule of the class enemy. So, but if you're missing the bus and you're seeing this huge uprising of blue-collar workers in the form of MAGA, and you're just dismissing it because, because MSNBC told you to, I don't know what to tell you. You're not equipped to even have a chance of being a leader in terms of leading a class.
Yeah, that's not my point. I mean, I agree to certain degrees with what you're saying, but the major functional problem is that the people who own the class structure own the means of communication. We're talking about YouTube. We're even talking about the banning of TikTok. Yeah. These are people who functionally have the means to, literally educate the public. MSNBC is a form of education. TikTok is a form of education. Facebook is a form of education. What I'm saying is, You can say that structurally that there is a form of revolution in MAGA, but at the end of the day, that structural form of revolution is associated with a cult-like system of comprehension and understanding, and linking your movement to that very systematic structure of social, cultural, or cultish issues does not seem to be capable of actually liberating anybody in the long term of anything. You're using an already predefined system of.
You're pointing to MAGA's false consciousness, which he just said existed. You're pointing to all the things about MAGA.
Bro, I cannot take this yapping. Bro, please get to the point.
Okay, the point is very simple. At the end of the day, there is a limited. The people who understand MAGA have a limited understanding about a lot of different topics, and the people who control the media, the means of.
That's why we need to reach them. That's why we add communism to the MAGA to give them systematicity and guidance.
This is just like word salading. It's putting me to sleep. Can you get to a point, dude?
Do you have any structural plan to take on the actual means of communication besides just calling yourself MAGA communist?
Oh, read our program.
What do you mean? If we get banned from everywhere, yes, there's nothing we can do. But at least Telegram gets banned, that'll be much worse. We are trying to set up other means of communication that are fully owned by us and our own servers. It's going to take a little bit of time, but if that's what you're referring to, that's what you're referring to. I don't know what you're trying to say.
My point is, I think you guys are bad at marketing, but that's, if we you don't want to
think that your point is taken, but the results speak for themselves as far as our marketing abilities, quote unquote. How many impressions has ACP gotten in total? Probably tens of millions already.
At least.
We've gone viral on Chinese social media. We're actually, and we don't even control it. We are literally viral all over Chinese social media without us even controlling it. To say that we're bad at marketing is probably the most ridiculous critique I've heard yet. I don't even feel like that's worth responding to. Sleazy, go ahead.
So I just want to know, how you guys think that this isn't browderism, what you're doing.
Explain what it is.
Well,
Don't,
can you
you're fucking
briefly?
kidding me. You're not going to get on here and insult people and not know what Browderism is. Like,
Hold
how
on,
are you going to
Oh,
give
I
these
said
flippant
explain how
answers?
we're doing
No,
Browderism,
no,
not
no,
explain
hold
what
on,
it is.
Eddie.
All right.
Yeah, how are you doing it?
Eddie,
How are you not doing it? How is this not
please,
Browderism, what you guys are doing?
in your own words, please tell me what Browderism is.
No, I'm not giving you in my own words when you've just flippantly answered people left and right.
All right, so if you want me to educate you on what Browderism is, Browderism was a form of liquidationism in which they basically wanted to turn the Communist Party USA into a literal appendage of the Democrats as like the CPA, the Communist Political Association, which would have acted as a lobbying and interest group to basically be like a think tank for the Democrats or something. So Browderism was associated with a form of extreme liquidationism that was based in too much of a naive faith and trust in Roosevelt's New Deal coalition and the institutions, the political institutions of the bourgeoisie in general. Now, if I had to guess, I think you're an illiterate and uneducated online internet leftist who looked at rallies of the Communist Party USA during the 1930s, where they had a lot of patriotic symbolism and they had a lot of enthusiasm for, for the country they lived in, which was just the orthodox Marxist-Leninist position shared by all Marxist-Leninist parties, and say that's Browderism, because for some reason it's surreal to you that communist parties are patriotic. But that wasn't what Browderism is, because even under the leadership of William Z. Foster, or even later under Gus Hall, or whatever leadership the CPUSA had, up until the liquidation after the 1990s, I would argue that's what it is. The CPUSA towed the orthodox Marxist-Leninist line of socialist patriotism. And whether that was Browder or William Z. Foster, that was not a decisive point of contention. The decisive point of contention concerned the liquidation of the party into the CPA, which that is what solidified the notion of Browderism, finally and fully. So you're asking us why we are Browderists. I think it's incredibly bizarre to put the onus on us as far as disproving how we're Browderist when we are an independent party, which is not an appendage of any other kind of party. We're maintaining proletarian political independence, even more so than the party has historically. Historically, the party was much more receptive to having coalitions with Democrats, and we don't have any coalitions with any party. We're that fiercely independent. So what is Browderist about our party? That's very baffling. The onus is on you to demonstrate what is Browderist about our party. So, sir, don't get angry and start, I know I just gave you an education lesson that contradicted your entire Reddit curriculum, but you're going to have to calmly respond to this, or we're just going to remove you. Go ahead.
Dude, for one, you go on this boring rant that doesn't discuss anything that I said. You're telling people.
Oh my good lord.
You just said I went on a boring rant that didn't address anything you said. When you said, why are we Browderist? I very thoroughly explained to you what Browderism actually was and how we have nothing to do with it. And you're saying it has nothing to do with what you said. Do I hear you correctly, or do my ears deceive me? I can't believe that.
You got to quit muting me, buddy. So here's the deal. Like you just said, why did it take you 3 minutes to describe something I can describe in 30 seconds?
Because when I asked you to describe it, you said you weren't going to do it, and that we have to describe it because we're being mean to people. That's why I educated you very thoroughly.
Muting me again, dude. Quit fucking muting me. Like fucking take
Stop
it.
yelling,
like, what the hell is?
Stop yelling. Calm down. Make an
What do you
argument.
mean? Decorum is a tool of oppression. I can speak as loud as I want, you fucking pussy. Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh my God! Make
address
an
the
actual
actual critique.
nonsense.
I can make an actual argument if you quit muting me. Like,
go for
and
it.
Like you, Eddie, making the distinction, like, oh, we need to distinguish
Shut up
ourselves
and make an
and be
argument.
like, oh,
you are so annoying. Please
not
say
as annoying as
something
you.
substantive.
Sure, yeah, shut the fuck up. So you said you make this distinguishing that we don't think mega communists need to support trans rights and things like that. And so you're doing Browderism, you're doing identity politics, you're doing neoliberal politics.
Is this real? Is this a real person?
Is this a troll? What about us has anything to do with Browderism? Go ahead.
You can unmute yourself, bro.
Okay, yeah, I can. I'm not gonna just continue to unmute myself, dude. Like, if you guys can't handle having an honest conversation and take some valid critiques, you just want to get fucking softballs all fucking day long, then that's up to you. I don't care. You do all
softballs. You're soying out like a freak, like crazy.
Critique.
Yeah, because you just fucking keep muting me. Look at you. You guys do the same shit to every single person who comes up. No,
you came in here asking us about Browderism, so talk about Browderism.
You asked for a debate, and now you're getting it, and you can't fucking handle it. You just keep muting me.
What is the debate?
I already told you it's communism wrapped in an American flag, and I didn't need 3 fucking minutes to ramble on about.
Can you address the point I made about how it was still wrapped in an American flag under William Z. Foster and every other leader of the CPUSA? Not just Earl Browder. He was not exceptional for that, and therefore it's not Browderism. Browderism was more specifically about the liquidation of the party into the CPA.
No, you're just deflecting. We're not going on some ideological tangent about...
No, I think it is important to defend how Dimitrov established the norm of socialist patriotism and clarified it for every communist.
Of course you think it's important because you've actually met someone who can critique you and you're not willing to...
But you can't do that. You're just soying out about the debate.
Because I'm doing what you're doing. You're not giving me any space to give you a valid critique. If you're just going to sit there and shit talk, so am I, motherfucker.
Respond to my argument. Respond to the point I made then. Go ahead. Respond to it.
You respond to my point and tell me how, okay, if my definition is Browderism is communism wrapped in the American flag, how are you guys not that?
Because
how am I wrong?
Because it's a wrong definition. That's why.
How so?
Because it was wrapped in an American flag under all the other leaders of the CPUSA too, not just Earl Browder.
Okay, so is there Fosterism?
Yeah, sure.
Is there a term Fosterism?
Yeah, sure. We're Foster.
Yeah, we're just American communists. You could just call us American communists.
Okay, so you are Browderist. You'll admit it.
No, we're not. Because Browderism is something very specific.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, let's carry on then. So if you guys aren't these things, then why do you need to make that distinction? Like, it's not trans people who are centering themselves and saying we need to have...
I think you need to go to the hospital and get some antipsychotics. Because it's like, we went from Browder to trans people, and I don't know what you're just angry about something, and you need to go get some antipsychotics from the hospital, right? I tried to
wild.
Your so-called critique calling us Browderists. I carefully explained to you that you don't know what Browderism is. You seem to have conceded on that point, and then you pivoted to trans people. What does that have to do with Browderism, for that matter? He's like, you're wrapped in an American flag, and then it's like, okay, can you? What does this guy think that in Yemen and Afghanistan and Palestine, for that matter, and all these places where the American flag has a really bad rap, that's like a trans paradise? What is he trying to say? That anti-Americanism is somehow proportional to trans rights? Because it's really not. And the opposite is in fact true. The opposite is in fact true. So let's be clear. Ryan, let's bring Ryan on. Yo, Ryan. All right, I don't know what's going on with this guy. Zero Cardion.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, I'm fine.
Quick question, you guys. What separates the Eddie? Was that saying you had C? Is that ACP?
ACP.
What separates the ACP from the CPUSA, ideologically speaking? Is it just you guys don't want to be associated with the Dems?
Yeah. Well, it's not only that. I think it's also that it's not just that we don't want to be associated with them. We take seriously the goal of building an actual independent communist politics and communist party. We don't just want communism to be a cheerleader for the Democrats. We want it to have its own independent political content.
Gotcha. Okay, so what policies and stuff like that, or ideas, have you guys created that would separate you from the CPUSA? Like, I remember, Eddie, on one of your videos that you posted, you said you were for like an economic bill of rights per se. That was one of the proposals that you came up with, something similar to that.
Oh, are you directing that at me?
Yeah, Eddie, Midwestern.
Is that one of the things in our program? I don't know if that is. Or that is. I think. Yeah. That's our program is different than CPUSA's. I don't even know if CPUSA has a program.
The Economic Bill of Rights thing is something that is historically part of the CPUSA program, which, I mean, we are the reconstitution of the CPUSA. We're not a completely how should I say, unrelated party. We are a self-proclaimed reconstitution, which means we are claiming to be the inheritance of the CPUSA, historical CPUSA.
Oh, so you guys inherited like the mandate of heaven, kind of.
We want, that's our goal, basically. Yeah. That's
Gotcha.
our support, and that's our practical aim.
Gotcha. Now, quick question. I'm obviously not a communist. I don't really believe in communism, but I do like socialism, and I feel like socialism could work just because it has worked in other countries around the world, because there are socialist countries out there. But what would be like the end goal? Because I don't really see communism as being achievable, given the fact that it's a stateless, classless, moneyless society. To me, that just sounds like very egalitarian, and it sounds very utopian.
That's just the TikTok definition.
I can respond to this very quickly. I actually think the reason communism is superior to socialism as an ideology, to be clear, China says that it's socialist, is that if you're just a socialist, then you're defining a system and a society very narrowly in terms of its content. But if you're a communist, and the definition is the real movement that sublates the present state of things, you're not putting a limit on the evolution and development and transformation of your society, whether it's the form of socialism that we see in Europe, of welfare states, or Soviet-style even Soviet-style planning, which was adopted by some Ba'athist countries to some extent, for example, or all these other kinds of socialism. Those have expiration dates, and you need to be a communist to be able to have such a totalizing critique of society that you're able to dynamically reform and adjust to new circumstances and times without being attached to a specific stage of the mode of production. So I think that's why communism is superior to socialism. Communism has such a very advanced and lofty and far-seeing horizon of social transformation that it doesn't put a limit on how far society can go in terms of how much it needs to change and adapt. And I think the change part is inevitable. Now, whether that ultimately is going to lead to a society where there's no longer any money and no longer any state in the sense in which Engels defined the state, which, by the way, would probably be a contentious definition from the perspective of today's anthropology and history. But nonetheless, that, you don't necessarily have to wager any money on it. But having that ability to critique states and, relationships built on exchange and monetary systems and financial systems can prove to be an incredibly dynamic perspective when it comes to actual changes and adaptations that need to happen.
You see, I feel like okay, so I heard what you said. I feel like it's mostly because I don't identify as a communist, but from what I've heard you said, you're basically someone who just believes in the critiquing of the system and not wanting to be stuck within a certain system because you recognize that change is inevitable. So you want to critique every system that comes forward so that you can better society.
Yeah,
Can
and
you
I
guys
think
hear me?
that's the same
You
kind
guys
of.
can hear me clearly, right?
Yeah, and I think the Communist Party in China would say the same thing. That's what it means for them. It's like they're not going to be stuck on a specific mode of production. It's a constant process of transformation and change based on, changes in technology, changes in the evolution of social organization and socialization. And the idea is that eventually that will lead to, a communist mode of production that doesn't have any traces of, exchange, value, the value form as such, and classes as such, right? Now that is never something that's defined, though. That's never something that is a blueprint is created for. That's never something that is like planned for. It's just, it's a horizon of unlimited social transformation, which I think at the very least is correct. I mean, if there's one thing you can be certain about, it's that history will not end at a certain point arbitrarily. It will.
New conditions rise, new conditions fall, times change, history changes, technology changes, socioeconomic conditions change. You have like health epidemic, you have like natural disasters, stuff like that. Like everything, it's always subject to change. The status quo doesn't remain the same throughout time. It always changes.
Yeah, exactly, and that's really what communism is about.
You see, so I heard what you had to say. To me, it's just whenever I hear, because I am a student of history, and whenever I hear the term communism, I always think back to stateless, moneyless, classless society. And in my mind, I feel like the best, if I can rebrand, the best alternative to naming would just be like the egalitarian movement or the scientific egalitarian, like egalitarian.
I don't think communism is about egalitarianism. I think it's about, again, it's about a movement based in social transformation and change, but one that is cognizant and conscious of that fact. So there's always been social transformation and social change throughout history, but there's never been a scientific understanding of that process and an understanding of the inevitability of that process consciously, and in such a way that you can respond to it and plan for it and plan around it. And I think that's where communism is decisive, at least from the Marxist point of view. Now, there were utopian socialists who had specific definitions of what kind of society they wanted to see and implement. And there were anarchists who said that they wanted to abolish everything and just kind of whatever. But that's not from the Marxist camp, at least.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I want to thank. I didn't really have much planned to say. I just want to thank you guys for your time, and I appreciate you guys bringing me up here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Good question.
All right. So let's bring on whoever's next, which is no one.
Chili Dog.
Chili Dog, what's up? Thank you for nothing. Let's bring on who's gonna request. Who's got a problem with? If you hate me and Eddie, you should request. You should request. If you don't like us, then request. If you hate us and you just, I can't stand. Sleazy's back.
He's back for more.
The one hater. All right, Sleazy, I'm going to let you in under the following condition. You need to actually make an argument and commit to it and follow a line of argumentation. All right? Just one. Well, let's start with Noop. Let's let him hate us. Go ahead. What's your problem?
Hello.
Yeah.
Could you explain your break from CPUSA and also people's claims that you're homophobes, transphobes, reactionary socialists?
I'm not going to explain the break from CPUSA again. Regarding these other claims, that we are, I don't know what constitutes those things. We don't hate anyone, and we don't believe in harassing anyone because of their private whatever. But we definitely are not waving those flags, and we are not associating any of those things with communism. And I think that's why they make those claims, because we just don't see it as like a struggle for liberation or whatever. We just see it as a private matter that we don't, has nothing to do with communism at all.
So, like, classic. Don't you think that's kind of a strategic mistake of leaving these big tent issues to more moderate, liberal, centrist groups?
No, because I think that I don't think these issues are that important. I just don't, politically speaking, they're not. I think they're very important for the adolescent youth, which is definitely looking toward these kind of subcultures as an outlet for the new disturbances in family life that have accompanied the rise of social media and a more decentralized cybernetic society. But I don't think those are necessarily things I want to encourage in terms of adolescence and, teenage rebellion, and I don't think it has a great deal of political significance.
Well, isn't there a lot of daylight between, being a dialectical materialist, believing in class warfare, and saying those issues don't matter at all? I mean, isn't that... It sort of reminds me of some of the reactionary leftist people I know who don't really like talking about racism or xenophobia, because it's which is in no sense a distraction. I mean, you could say, like, as you're pointing out strategically, most people don't care about something as niche as trans rights, but why not simply, draw your circle around that as part of the class struggle?
Because it's not. It has nothing to do with class struggle.
So classic notions of like women's rights, for instance, don't interest you?
Well,
I understand rights theory is not a Marxist position per se, but
the feminist movement that was asking for universal suffrage.
Under Rosa Luxemburg.
No, I'm saying that was heavily critiqued by Marxists at the time. And that's not because they were against universal suffrage that included women. It's because the notion that there's this specific liberation struggle for women specifically was not accepted. It was, there was definitely a proletarian line on questions pertaining to women's status. That's definitely true, but it was not intersectional. It was not intersectional. It had a lot to do with the fact that women were, increasingly 50% of the proletariat and the workforce.
Well, it has to do with the division of labor under Engels, yeah. But it seems like I guess my point is, it seems like a conspicuous absence, and that's why people accuse you guys of being proto-fascists. It reminds me of leftists. It seems like an opportunist plenty of fodder.
Right. I don't understand what the relation to fascism is. I think we're just orthodox Marxist-Leninists, and I think that the inclusion of all these other things was a compromise with Hillary Clinton-style identity politics after 2015 and 2016. And we are just orthodox MLs, and we are the ones who are baffled at why these compromises had to happen with neoliberals, more or less.
Well, it has to happen because you have to connect people's individual struggles and their subgroup struggles to class struggle. You can't just say, I don't care
that I do agree that we live in an incredibly psychological era where a lot of people are so narcissistic that they really need everything to be personally about them. But I don't think those tendencies are proletarian tendencies. I think they are more tendencies that you find, with Hillary Clinton's campaign staffers and, HR, corporate workspace employees, just kind of snowflake, petty bourgeois stuff and that's not a proletarian.
Well, I mean, by that standard, though, you could say that class struggle in the imperial core is just petty bourgeois nonsense. We're all sitting here
on
our cell phones while people are mining coal
struggle
in the global south. I mean, it's the labor aristocracy.
Well, regardless of phones, which third world proletariat definitely have smartphones. But in any case,
that's obviously not the point I'm making here.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying it seems more both. It just seems a lot more strategically effective to connect every issue of oppression you can to people's material conditions, including the superstructure, which at no point, I mean, Engels clarifies.
I don't agree that having personal psychological issues is a form of oppression. I think oppression is something concrete when we're talking about what oppression is. And the proletarian position is not based on self-aggrandizement and self-fulfillment. It's based on selflessness and collectivism. And that's what a proletarian consciousness means. Proletarian consciousness is not when everything about the struggle has to be tailored to your specific experiences.
Right.
It's when you're able to articulate, and you yourself have to do this, the meaningfulness of your experience within something that's beyond you. It's not about you. It's about a collective thing. You have to sacrifice the you part for the collective. And and it can sound dystopian and Orwellian or whatever people say, but that has always just been the difference between the proletarian line and the petty bourgeois line. It's this collectivism versus individualism. And Stalin wrote about this in his
why is it
Marxism versus anarchism. And he said the main difference is that in anarchism, it's all about the individual because it's an extension of liberalism.
Sure, yeah, it's liberalism in decay. If you had a social society, though, would you enforce bourgeois family norms like the division of labor in the home? Would you have supported like the Soviet ban on abortion, which granted was a fairly democratic? It was a referendum.
Family life, it's not possible. I think. Look.
In other words, would you like use the state as a cudgel to oppress gay people or trans people who didn't want to enter the bourgeois family structure to build the material?
I don't even think Russia today is doing that. I think Russia today is banning propaganda targeted toward children. It's a very strict.
Yeah, that's like where people draw the connection to like the fascist line or to like that's like Pizzagate level stuff. Like
okay, but I don't understand.
Like there are statists, statist communists who believe that like migrant workers, for instance, aren't proletariat.
Fine, but I don't know why is fascism being so used recklessly? Fascism is something very specific, okay? Fascism
yeah, sure, but it's a corruption of socialism, and it's very easy to see how it can become chauvinistic.
No, it is not a corruption of socialism. Fascism is I can't say the words on TikTok, but Dimitrov has a very specific definition of what fascism is. And fascism is not about conservatism or your views on family life or your views on sexuality. Fascism is something very specific that's rooted in war. It's rooted in militarism. It's rooted in things like that. It's not about your personal views on, sexual.
Historically ends up being chauvinistic, and I don't know if you can say his name, but the Italy guy was a
right.
Yeah, don't say it.
Let's look at that word chauvinism. Okay, somewhere in the 1960s, the word chauvinism began to start being applied by feminists to sexuality, where there's male chauvinism. And from there, chauvinism became like, oh, you're chauvinistic, you're culturally aggressive toward these sexual minorities or toward women. But when Lenin was using the word chauvinism, he was actually talking about, it was named after, I forget his exact name, a Frenchman who pioneered a position of military aggression on behalf of France during, I believe it was during the Great War, during the First Imperialist War, where he was basically pro-war credits. Let's let's aggressively prey on these colonies and these countries. And that's what chauvinism is. It's a line of so basically AOC, when she's voting in Congress or the Senate, for the Iron Dome, or when so-called progressive liberals are making the argument that we need to go to Afghanistan to give women rights, they are actually definitionally the chauvinists that Lenin was talking about. Chauvinism.
Sure, I mean that's why they accuse Dems of being social fascism, all that kind of stuff.
Chauvinism is not a sociological.
I mean, you've read a lot of early Soviet writings, haven't you, about how to construct a new society? Many of those of the Bolsheviks and Bolshevik thinkers, if you look at even Solzhenitsyn, like how they were planning cities, break with traditional bourgeois family structures in very, very radical ways.
They definitely were, and this was a lot.
In other words, they wouldn't care who was gay, who was whatever. I mean, there was a lot of that going on.
No. What was going on, it had nothing to do with the cultivation of alternative sexualities, but the common denominator was an extreme collectivism, just extreme collectivism, where the problem they had with families wasn't that it was, stymieing individual expression. Individual expression was what was in the crosshair by these extremists of the early Soviet period. And what they wanted to do is basically have a total collectivism of family life, a total erasure of any kind of private life whatsoever, and basically people becoming like machines, more or less. Now, you can say that's very extreme and radical.
Matching primitive communist societies with collectively raising children.
No, it was much more radical, and it was on an industrial scale that they were envisioning this. So it was something that a lot of these intersectional types would probably find incredibly terrifying. And there was a dystopian novel that George Orwell ripped off of that was written in the 1920s as a kind of response and parody to this experiment, this avant-garde ideas, which was called We. The book is called We, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess early Bolshevism was such a multipolar.
It's not about Bolshevism. All of the stuff I'm talking about was a consequence of avant-garde intellectuals, and the avant-garde is not Bolshevism. These were intellectuals that predated Bolshevism, and they used the revolution, seized it as an opportunity to basically, okay, we can start from scratch and build a completely new vision for the future. There was prolet cult, and there was this complete, they called it liquidationism, right? And the Bolshevik line, led by Lenin and later Stalin, especially Lenin though, they were extremely ambivalent and critical of all of it, because they were saying, this is nonsense, it's hot air, we need to focus on what works, we need to focus on, reality, we need to focus on, in terms of literature and art, the classics of the past, we need people to be educated on that. We need to build the basic premises of a civilization. We cannot recreate all of society from scratch. And Lenin used to have a saying that habit is everything. Everything is habit. You can't consciously dictate ways of life and no, everything is habit. And things evolve on the basis of evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with all that history. I guess I'm just trying to understand how you can't see that the distaste people have for not just saying that making the connection between exploitation, material exploitation, and social oppression. I mean, it's pretty evident that there are forms of it that matter. It's easier to make that connection than it is just say, none of that matters.
I think that pipeline to communism has been a disaster, because it has basically been a way of pandering to the feelings of petty bourgeois narcissists who have no intention of doing
Well, let's just put it this way, though. Isn't like all of this a test? And at the end of the day, whatever leftist party gains the most following and makes the most prominence in the United States wins that ideological struggle.
But the people that have been recruited to the far left, so-called, since 2016 are not people capable of building movements or parties or organizations. Heavy on organization. They're really not. The PSL miraculously is still around. I'll give them that, miraculously. But I think the only reason they're still around is because the glue that holds them together is because they go to protests, and they're all every protest. They're very heavy on the protest. But none of them are capable of collective discipline to actually have an organization, and there's always splits and drama going on.
Yeah.
And because it's a specific petty bourgeois psychology that is incapable of self-sacrifice and collectivistic discipline.
Yeah. I mean, I can see those critiques. I just think it's one-sided to try and split up these oppressions from class struggle. I don't think it's going to succeed.
Well, put it this way. Psychological grievance is not oppression. As much as it can cause suffering for people and discontent.
I mean, so is a suicidal office worker who makes $35,000 a year, are they oppressed or no?
No.
Oh, okay. So basically,
well, let me
what is
give
the purpose
you,
of class struggle in the global north then?
Let me throw you a nuclear take.
Sure.
I don't think I can say the word on TikTok. Are cells oppressed?
I mean, there's paradoxical forms of oppression.
Men who can get no play, are they oppressed? I don't think they are, but do you think they are? Because they live very miserable lives.
If I met one of those, I would try to rhetorically connect their struggle to a socialist struggle rather than let them get caught up in some nonsense.
I disagree with that a lot, because what I would tell them is, suck it up. You're not entitled. You're being narcissistic.
Yeah, and what do you think that would do? That would turn them away, and then they become fodder for the right.
Well, it depends on how tough they are.
What do you? I mean, so okay, draw the line between this will be my last thing, but draw the line for me between psychological and material suffering in the global north for me. If someone's addicted to fentanyl, are they exploited or oppressed or both or neither?
What the Panthers used to say to addicts is they have to go cold turkey. They were so harsh about it. They said cold turkey. That's our way of getting you off. Because suffering and pain is part of how you be strong. When I go to the gym every day, I'm suffering.
I mean, but does that work? Like the question here is material, not a question of what feels right for you to say.
I don't think it's good to make people feel good. I think it's good to give people guidance so that they can become strong and they can actually have a way of making meaningful sense and giving purpose to their situation. When you tell people, suck it up, whatever, there is a subtext where it's like, hey, you can get over this. You can move. You just got to suck it up and be tough. Like, yeah, that is still giving them something. The problem is when you tell people there's no hope for you, there's nothing you could do whatsoever, you are fully, cooked.
There's just I understand. So I'm sympathetic to a lot of what you're saying. I've read Stalin. I consider myself a Marxist-Leninist. I just don't see the utility in not connecting social oppressions to exploitation.
It's much more disastrous to pander.
Well, I mean, that history will be the judge of that, whether the ACP takes off or collapses. I mean, that's what
I agree. But I think that I
think that there's if I talk to, for instance, talking to the cell person that we can't say, are they that, if they tell me that they're a fasci, right? I tend to think, okay, is that because you sat and read books on political theory and you decided what was the best route for you? Or is that because you got something else going on psychologically? And that's sort of what I smell in the whole. But I think that LGBT people don't care about racism, don't care about,
I think people care more about purpose than feelings. And the people that are too weak to rise to the task of purpose are not the ones who are belonging in a communist party.
Can I say something too? I've had maybe more luck than a lot of people in bringing these right-wing people to communism, especially confused younger people. And what they respect is not pandering. They'll just mock you and troll you. What they respect is strength. Like what Haas is saying is true. You just pandering to them, it doesn't work. Like with Fuentes fans or whatever, they respect strength.
For sure. Yeah.
And toughness.
And what I'm saying is a standard for any army on earth that is effective and that works. You don't pander to anyone's feelings.
Yeah. So then where's the line between purely psychological struggle or suffering and material oppression, exploitation for you? Because obviously, I mean, bringing Marx into the 21st century is difficult when you have a labor aristocracy. So where do you claim that psychological suffering, like, being gay and being oppressed for being gay, getting beat up at school or something, is not real and is not important, is not connected to a Marxist-Leninist struggle, which I disagree with. But where's the line, right? So is anyone in America oppressed in the labor aristocracy? Is it just migrant workers, or do migrant workers not count?
I think oppression is something that is only possible at the impersonal collective level. And it's not something possible at a personal level. So workers are not exploited purely on a personal level. They can be getting, I mean, there's a personal connotation that comes with exploitation. There's also the objective one that Marx described in Capital, which is very much an impersonal mechanism of exploitation.
Yeah, but why does it matter? Because it matters psychologically.
Well,
otherwise, why organize the United States? I mean,
how does it bear out psychological fruit? In the form of nihilism and despair and a lack of meaning, not necessarily just suffering. Suffering is a part of life. It's a part of communism. It's a part of Soviet life. All life has suffering. Just like the Buddhists say, life is suffering itself. But it's specifically the loss of meaning that leads to a complete degradation. They say a degradation of the human. And that degradation is not simply because people feel bad about themselves or they have psychological problems. It's an objective degradation.
Sure. Yeah. So what's the connection between the two, though? I mean, you've now equated oppression with exploitation, and then said psychological oppression isn't real oppression.
It's not necessarily just exploitation. That's one kind of oppression I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, the point I think this bears.
Give you other examples.
That's fine. I think this is just this is like a good example of like the need to be able to meaningfully operationalize these terms and then connect them together, rather than just saying, I don't think that's real, I don't care.
The way that
I mean, Marx and Engels talk about how the oppression of women in the division of labor shows up in sexism, more or less.
I think the oppression you're talking about, or is something that is being stretched beyond what it originally was.
I mean, it certainly could be true in the labor aristocracy in the global north, absolutely.
I don't think you're allowing me to speak. So there's the oppression I'm talking about, which is exploitation. That's really difficult to explain. But the one that everyone understands is oppression from the perspective of the revolutionary bourgeois. And that kind of oppression is directly when an institution is in a tyrannical and completely hostile way, preventing people from being able to have opportunity, right? Preventing people from being equal, preventing people from being treated as equal. So, for example, if you're a peasant or you're a serf, you're being oppressed by the ancient regime. You're being directly oppressed. If you're a slave, for that matter, you're being directly oppressed by the system of slavery. And bourgeois revolutions were against only that specific kind of oppression. And bourgeois neoliberal ideology took that oppression and, in a way that I think is insanity, tried to apply it to the personal realm of sexuality and microaggressions. And when you're walking on the sidewalk and someone looks at you weird, you're being oppressed. So that's the issue, I think. I think when Marxists talk about oppression, they're doing that in the context of a political conflict, right? Which is the class struggle when it's raised to a political conflict. And that kind of oppression is not translatable to it's not commensurate with the neoliberal intersectional notion of oppression. It's completely different.
Yeah. I mean, I take that point. Just being able to draw meaningful connections or lines around things is important. I'm not convinced you're able to do that, but history will be the judge of which parties win out. And
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Anything else, Bobby?
No, just, like as from one Marxist-Leninist to another, like stay flexible. Be open to, rigorous self-critique if these things don't end up going the way you want them to or leading to ACP.
But
descendants.
I want to emphasize something that we have had nothing but success, and all of our problems stem from bad faith actors who very intentionally are trying to do everything they can
Sure.
to malign our reputation and attack us. And we don't know exactly what their motivations are, but a lot of it seems to be rooted in something artificial and inauthentic.
I mean, that's the internet. It's pretty hard to get around that.
Yeah. But I think what's important is everyone remains vigilant and information vigilant. Don't just believe things because they're going viral or something, because you don't know if those are bots, you don't know who's boosting it. And you'd be surprised how many people meet us and see us and they're like, I can't believe how much this is just not what I was being told by all these viral tweets.
But there's also a lot of communists who say that you guys are CIA plants and all this kind of stuff and PSYOP. So
right, but you know that it is one of the tactics of CIA or those people in those lines of work is Fed jacketing. Yeah. And they'll do it to muddy the water and basically have people looking in the wrong directions.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, great.
Yep. Yeah. All right, let's bring on MJ Jabbar. Yo. All right. Mr. Misfit. Yo.
Yo, go ahead. You got a critique, Mr. Misfit? Got some classical music going on there?
Right now, but with 10.
Nah, that was weird.
Ahmad, what's up?
Ahmad. Where'd you go?
All right, dude just joined and left. All right.
Oh boy.
Sleazy wants to come back. All right, Sleazy, you heard my terms and conditions. Go ahead.
Oh, you guys are bringing me back. Let's go. Okay, so here we'll keep it simple for you. So, why do we feel the need to go after Maga and turn them into communists? How many Bolsheviks were there at the start of the revolution?
A lot less than there were peasants.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, what percentage of a population does it typically take for a revolution?
The Bolsheviks couldn't have won without the peasants.
Yeah, absolutely not. That doesn't matter. What I'm saying is the starting point. So no, you don't have to go get in bed without fascists to achieve communism, and everybody knows that. Breezy's got it 14%. It takes approximately 14% of the population to start a revolution. So you don't need to go
that's
after.
Not true.
You don't need to go. It is true. What?
It's not true. You can't just have 14%. You're missing the context of the 90% peasant majority that were extremely aggrieved to the point where they were setting up alternative forms of governance called the Soviets. And the 14% that you're talking about that took power came to power on the back of a slogan called "All Power to the Soviets One," and the second "Peace, Land, and Bread." So absolutely you need the majority.
We're talking about all revolutions across all history is the 14% number. That's not just a specific to the Soviet Revolution number. But so it was 24,000 Bolsheviks at the start of the revolution, approximately. By September, there was 200,000. So yeah, you're.
Can you respond to what I just told you about how the situation had to be such that they connected?
You're asking me to come debate you, then you're constantly deflecting. Do you want to hear my point, or do you want to?
I don't want to hear you anymore because
insufferable.
It's not possible. It's like I just raised a point. Like, no, it wasn't just a small minority because it was a revolutionary context for the great majority. And then had they not connected with that great majority, the minority would not have been able to take power.
Carlos is always saying we have a crisis of argumentation in this country where like people don't actually even understand what an argument is. And Sleazy is example number one of that.
Yeah.
Never heard anything like it.
Gave him another chance, and he didn't really impress. All right. Well,
who else we got? Come on, people. Someone who knows how to use
Prince.
words.
We got Prince here. Go ahead, Prince.
Hey, Haz.
Yeah.
Destiny said the guy in the video was you. He was giving you top. Is that true?
What a weird ass thing to say.
Especially with Jesus as your profile picture.
Jesus' profile picture, and he's saying this weird shit, bro. Yikes.
You think the Destiny Fuentes thing is real?
I don't even want to give 1% of attention to any of that. Honestly, yeah. We definitely need a palate cleanser now.
Mm-hmm. Come on, people, request to join. We need some people who can make coherent arguments. I know that's few and far between when it comes to our haters, but they're very loud on Twitter. They're very loud in the comments, but they don't seem to want to actually have a conversation where we can respond. Except Sleazy.
He's back. All right, Sleazy, dude. No, that guy's exhausting. I don't want to deal with him. Sometimes people don't want to debate. They just want to say their piece. Very aggressive. They're like, now's my time to say my piece. And I'm like, shit.
It's their soapbox.
Really not. Yeah, it's really not that. David. Yo, what's going on?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I had a question. Do you guys accept the label? Because I remember, I think I was watching Prax Ben, and he said, I don't really like Prax Ben. I'm sure you guys don't like him either. But he had said previously once that the ACP were basically just left-wing groypers or something along that line. Do you agree with that notion?
No. I think the reason he said that is because that guy, that's the guy that lost to me in that debate, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the guy who lost.
And me.
That guy is, I don't know if I could say the Z word.
Just say Zio.
Yeah, that's what he is. And he's one of those people that are like part of the Mossad, network or whatever.
Right.
And so he associates us with the far right because apparently groypers are critical of, they're apparently, I'm not saying they are genuinely, they're not. But that's why they see no distinction, which is very dangerous, right? Because on the one hand, you have them who are far right Yahtzees, and on the other hand, we're the complete opposite of that. But just because superficially they also criticize can I say the word or?
The white and blue country is what we say.
White and blue country. Then that somehow means we're the same in the eyes of the Zios. Like we're the same thing, which is, it's crazy. It's like, it's extremely reckless.
Right. Also, another sort of thing I heard someone refer to your party as was, I'm not sure if you know who Ash is. I was watching their live stream the other day. And when someone mentioned that they were in the ACP, she kicked them immediately, and she's like, those guys are white supremacists. Like, where does that sort of notion come from?
I don't know.
Yeah, good question.
Good question. I don't know.
Our chairman's literally an Arab American. I don't know what you want from us.
Oh, I see.
I don't know where that comes from. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I, I really don't know. That one I don't understand. The whole stuff about how we're not accepting enough of sexual minorities. It's like, yeah, I mean, we are different from everyone else with respect to that, definitely. But the thing that criticism makes no sense. That one, it has just no sense to it at all.
Right. Also, for my final question,
You had enough question. Poetry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would just like to focus my contention on I'm not sure if I can say the word, but schmommunism's
You can say communism. You're good on that.
Yeah, okay.
They don't suppress that one for whatever reason.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so my contention on communism's history of violence on its own people, be it, China or, leaders such as Mao or Enver Hoxha, or whatever, however you say his name, Pol Pot, these figures, how, how this history and, all sort of ideologies under modernity sort of just kind of required violence in order for their own population, their own society to align with the values of the communist leaders.
I definitely don't think it's about aligning with the leader's ideology. There's not much I could say about this on TikTok, but look, states are, I'll tell you something, and then that's all I'm going to tell you. The first states in history meant to give expression to and somehow respond and realize the impersonal forces of nature, such as specifically floods and typhoons and natural catastrophes and disasters, hurricanes, whatever. And these terrible, terrible forces, impersonal forces of nature that were completely blind in their destructive nature. You could say this introduced a new perspective to people, that they are part of an impersonal collective existence that, in the same way as a force of nature itself, is just not something that can be treated as a personal actor. You cannot treat it as like a force of this leader, and it's personal. Leaders are representations of the state, but they are not the state itself. And that's a very, very important distinction. The state is a different beast, and it is inherently something that is violent with a W. I don't know what I could say on TikTok.
I guess I would just respond by pointing out how for most of history this didn't happen. This is kind of a sort of a post-Enlightenment consequence from leaders or from governments who follow Enlightenment thinkers such as Marx, or that follow even Nietzsche, or even liberals, or who they follow Locke or whoever. I don't think you find this sort of mass violence in monarchies or in any time in the Middle Ages. I don't think that we find this sort of targeting of your own population ever, really, until
it's Genghis Khan and Tamerlane.
But was that towards his own?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of the idea I kind of have is I'm looking more so at the European Middle Ages, I guess. I don't think anything close to what we see in
Well, of course, they had the Inquisition, for example.
But the Inquisition wasn't really, I might be, Inquisition revisionist or something, but the Inquisition wasn't really on the same level or near the same level as Enver
In terms
Hoxha.
of things on a well,
way worse.
Well, on a similar scale, you had the responses to the peasant uprisings, which were extremely brutal. It is true that society did not operate at a level of scale as they did in modern societies. And therefore, modern societies were much more destructive because it was something that they could be much more universal and simultaneous in the scope and the nature, the mass industrial nature of the application of state cruelty. So that's definitely true, but you have to categorize all of those things of the modern era alongside modern industry, modern technology, and modern standardization, which in the short term, you're right, were extremely brutal. You're right, and it was unprecedented. But in the long term, these are things that permitted and allowed for an unprecedented expansion of population, unprecedented extent of access to healthcare and medicine and lifespans increasing and then potential and education and so on and so on. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I guess I just I don't know. I just don't really see it that way because you brought up yeah.
You're a monarchist, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Do you believe in a strong state to manage the affairs of society? I mean, communism is really a couple steps from that.
Well, in a sense, yes. But I also believe in natural liberties. I believe that the state, as it was in the Middle Ages, or in some monarchies.
What state?
Or not the state per se, but just if we point to some monarchical empire, I don't think that they were ever near as tyrannical as a liberal or a communist.
They weren't, but they also suffered periodic famines, and they suffered periodic disease and plagues, and they were unable to respond to these things.
Yeah, well, sure. I'll grant that. I haven't seen anything like that, but I'll grant that just for conversation's sake. But yeah, what I was kind of just pointing to was this unique sort of this unique trait that modern.
All right, Michael, go ahead. I'm sorry, you're just taking way too long, dude.
All right, guys, I'm at work, but I was just listening. No, I align with you.
Well, thanks for that.
Appreciate it, Michael. We're just looking for debates today. To the monarchist guy, I followed you because I swear to God, monarchists are just confused communists. So if you want to continue the conversation, shoot me a DM.
The problem I have with monarchism is who will be the monarch. Right. You cannot institutionalize monarchy from above or on the basis of an idea. Monarchies arise on the basis of conquerors who originate from very humble origins, like the steppes or nomads. And that is the stuff out of which princes are born, from barbarians. So when we're talking about monarchies, we're not talking about an ideal institution we adopt or implement. We're talking about something that is connected. And then, the exception, people always look at the European Middle Ages as examples of monarchies, but that's such a small part of human history compared to the history of monarchies in general. And how monarchies arise in the European Middle Ages was nothing but conflict and contention, because what was considered a legitimate monarch was by no means something settled. It wasn't a clear, stable institution by any means. It was about the breakdown of the real monarch, which was the Emperor of Rome, and the Caesar, the king of the Romans, and the rise of the papacy and the rise of the breakdown of which came after the breakdown of the empire. That created a kind of war of succession that lasted a millennia as far as monarchy is concerned. So
yeah. I don't know. I just see ideologically they're just confused. Clearly they want some kind of strong state that runs things according to some kind of centralized plan that takes care of the people. And, like monarchism is completely outdated for the reasons that you were explaining. And, we can't go back in history. But, I mean, communism is the establishing of a strong state based in the people that runs things efficiently, where, things are being run incredibly inefficiently right now due to the contradictions of capital and the capturing and corruption of the capitalist state. I want to continue the conversation with that guy, though, because I've actually converted a lot of monarchists to communists because they're just confused communists everywhere. What's up, Sushigi?
He was talking way too slow. And
yeah, no, it's good. It was boring.
Yeah, anyway, Sush, go ahead. And, all right, I can't unmute him.
Sushi, you got to unmute yourself, brother. Sushimi, you're on mute. Sushimi. Sushi burrito.
Oh, we have to wait 24 seconds for them for their microphone.
I think if they unmute themselves, they can do it. Sushi, you gotta unmute yourself. We gotta wait 20 seconds.
What? I don't know how to unmute myself. I don't know what's going on. What's going on? I don't know.
The 90-year-old trying to figure out TikTok.
What do you mean unmute my? I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if they're here. All right, someone else step up to the plate. Sushimi.
This guy's probably yelling at us and just not even hearing us because he wants to talk over us. But he's not even aware that his mic doesn't work.
Who else we got? I'm just gonna start sending invites. Man, the only one who wants to debate is Sleazy because he doesn't understand arguments, so he can just come up here and scream. We got Seraph. He's an infrared guy, though, right?
Sleazy, just is waiting to scream. All right, Sleazy, go ahead.
There we go. All right, so right there, you just failed. There's a very simple retort to that argument. Obviously, that guy's just willing to uphold a monopoly on violence for his own self-service, right? That's what.
Is that not what I said?
What happened? What was that even about? What was he saying?
Education. Okay, here we go. This is person I want. Yeah, education is elevation. This should be good. Yo, state your critique. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh man, I was looking forward to that one. He left. That guy was talking a bunch of bull junk in the comments.
What was he saying?
I don't know. I just saw a bunch of people cooking him.
So did you not just admit, Eddie? So you agree with that critique then, right? That's the critique of his position on monarchy?
Not.
That you said that's what you were saying?
I was saying that he supports a strong state, you know, when the state has the monopoly on violence. So we should support communism instead of monarchism.
Right, so if you think that monarchism is less violent than communism, then that's only because it's a self-serving position because you're not feeling the violence perpetrated by that monarchy, right? Because if you're one of the, what do you mean what? So like say when the Dutch are conquering the Congo, so sure it's very easy for someone who's under King Leopold to say, oh yeah, monarchism is much less violent than communism because Mao, because Stalin, whatever bad argument they want to use. But the reality of that is because they're not facing the violence under that monarchy, right? That's pretty simple. You guys should be able to agree with that one. I mean, that's like communism 101. If you guys don't got that one, where are we at?
The guy was defending the Middle Ages, so Leopold would be
Well, I'm not the one who called monarchists the easiest ones to convert to communism. I mean, if that's not the most bourgeois fucking champagne socialist thing I've ever heard in my life, like, come on, dude. Like
the guy was talking about pre-modern monarchy. He wasn't talking about.
Well, capitalism has.
Sorry,
the
I'm good at
ability.
converting people. Sorry, I'm actually able to convince people of my arguments, which I'm sure you've never done in your life.
Okay, sure. And in fact, I know there's people in this live that I've converted. But anyway, you can laugh all you want. You can laugh all you want. But
Picture it didn't happen. Picture it didn't happen.
Okay, here's the thing though. So if you guys, so that again, like your targets are wrong. It's fine if you can make a connection with those sort of people, but like you were talking about intersectionality earlier, Hans, right? So you know what that is?
Hans,
sure.
Is he German now?
I don't know. Who cares? Anyway, so intersectionality. They came for the communist, right? So that's why you guys don't have to make this distinction that you don't care about trans rights and things like that, because you shouldn't be centering them. But neoliberal politics do, because capitalism has the ultimate ability to co-opt, right?
All right, that's enough of that.
No, this is Kareem, who's from Infrared. Sorry.
Oh shoot, I didn't realize it was Kareem.
Yeah.
Well, actually, me and Kareem had a conversation the other day, though. That was kind of a comradely debate. It would be boring, though. Kareem, we should have that conversation in the DMs.
No,
we can't.
Like real haters.
Yeah, we can't talk about use value and exchange value right now. People will leave.
Jay, he left. Jay requested. Yeah, I mean, like that guy. That guy's on amphetamine. I can't say the word.
In front of his kids, too. His kids. I would have liked to hear from one of his kids. They would have probably made a more coherent argument.
He was like, intersectionality, first they came for the communists and trans rights. And I'm like, what? Wow, that's just all so exhausting.
It's all so tiresome. Come on, people. Get in here. 190 people in the stream. We need one to debate. There we go. Now we got some popping up.
Miguel, what's up?
All right, peace. Why do these people keep popping in and then leaving? Rejoin, y'all. Come on. Step up. Oh, here we go. This guy's back. Oh, and we got another one. Let him in, yeah.
Hey.
Yo.
Yo.
I miss what the debate topic is, but I'm happy to debate whatever.
Whatever you want, man.
Oh shit! I feel like I'm being put on the spot because I agree with a lot of your takes on a lot of stuff, but I haven't.
Think of something and come back.
All right.
Poppy Noopy's back.
Who is that guy again?
He was the quiet guy who was the Marxist-Leninist who thinks we should focus a little more on IDPOL.
All right. All right. Well.
User 566 numbers is back.
Yo.
Dude, that
You just left again. All right. Yo, like, what is going on?
Regime says he wants to have a conversation about productive labor. If it's a debate, request to join.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. Oh, I cooked Colin Bodale today, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Those Zetkin passages.
Nice. Yo, Regime.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so
nice
I've been reading. Thank you. So I know we talk about like productive labor and that we mainly focus the blue collar working class people, but I've been reading stuff mainly from China. So I'm sure you've heard of Cheng and Fu from China.
Yeah.
He wrote a book about productive labor called Living Labor and the Creation of Value. And he argues in that book, and I think he does it fairly well, that managers and even up to capitalist people in China who are managing businesses, that they are creating value through their labor, their intellectual labor. Because labor for Marx isn't just manual labor, it also is the intellect of man. And if you are able to produce more value within a company as a manager, you're able to manage resources and such, you produce value for the Chinese socialist economy. So I don't know. I know what the party line is about productive labor, or how we talk about it, but reading that book was very like intriguing to me. But of course, it's only one guy, and
I don't think that would change our view on the primacy of blue collar workers. But to answer the question, I don't think we're living in the capitalism Marx was living in anymore. So when it comes to, but assuming we were, right? Productive labor is something that has to have the ability. This is why it's a really difficult concept in general, because it wasn't even true for Marx's time. And here's why I'll say it has to have the ability to valorize capital. And to valorize capital, it has to be able to be something that not only reproduces itself, not only something that yields a profit, but something that valorizes capital, which is the expansion of capital. It has to be something that how should I say, produces capital accumulation. And that's where the surplus value is coming from. It's coming from that basic reproduction of capital. And when we're talking about managers and even service workers and so on, we're talking about people that are living on the basis of revenue that was there before. not revenue that's generated by profits, and therefore they're not living on the basis of capital, or at least the capital that's being produced directly at the level of sales. So that is the point of productive labor, more or less. Labor is productive when it is capable of valorizing the process of capital accumulation. Now, has labor ever valorized that process is a very open question, I think. Because the assumption from classical political economy is that from scratch, where does the value come from? Where there's an industrious capitalist who is, the capital is being reproduced on the basis of capital itself, and it's like the question of where does the surplus come from, capable of this, reproduction of industrial capital. But it's like, but there had always been this background of credit that is coming from monopoly on rents and land that was necessary for the expansion even of 19th century industrial capitalism. So when it comes to the production of value, I don't think Marx said it was a said and done question. I think the question was the central topic of classical political economy, and Marx explored that question from a lot of different angles and dimensions. And he was sure that labor was the source of value because that was already the contention of classical political economy. But precisely how is not something Marx actually got around to fleshing out totally and completely. Now that is my view on it. Eddie may have a different view. It's not the official party line. But I like to refer back to what Marx described as the definition of labor, which is the transformation of nature and the production of material wealth. And that is actually what labor is.
Like Cheng and Fu, he says that managers are doing that because they're managing human labor and the resources and allocating it in such a way that increases value. And those are the most successful.
They definitely are helping facilitate that. But they are not actually doing it. They're not actually doing it. To do it is a matter of being involved directly in the transformation, which they're not. They help organize that transformation and they help facilitate it, but they are not directly participating in it themselves on a physical level.
I see, because the Cheng and Fu book, The Creation of Living Value, that was the only book where I really had that view, because I shared the view of productive labor that you had, basically, but that book really challenged my view in a way. But he's from China, he's under different circumstances. I think that maybe skews his view a certain different way.
That's true, and I also think it would be a wrong assumption. My small criticism, it would be a wrong assumption to say that the production of value it has a normative dimension. That, like, for example, that this means it's good or it's somehow necessary or has utility for a socialist society. Because remember, value is necessarily bound up with capitalism and alienation, and wealth is not the same thing as value necessarily. Value is a much more tricky concept.
Even Marx, I mean, when I was reading Capital, I did it with an eye to everything Marx said about productive labor because it's become such a contentious debate in our era. And I mean, it's one of the few places where even Marx tends to contradict himself at points. Like, even he was constantly struggling with addressing this question of what is productive labor and what is not. But from an organizing standpoint, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, the blue collar working class has the ability to shut the entire economy down. That's not something the PMC has, and or intellectual workers have, and they're also endowed with all this petty bourgeois consciousness. So, I mean, that's what I would say simply, but it's definitely one of the tougher questions in the history of the Marxist tradition, I would say.
All right. I mean, I don't really have much to say. I just wanted to hear that opinion from Haas and you guys. So yeah, thank you.
For sure. Thanks, man. Dope profile picture.
I also think, to add to the point, I think that I think another reason for the emphasis on blue collar workers is that I don't think we believe that the organization of affects and emotions is a type of proletarian labor that we want to go and organize.
Right.
I think we rather view these things as abominations, which are a consequence of the decay and degradation of capitalism, and that ideally everyone should be a blue-collar worker who works 30 minutes a day, and all of the rest is left up to their free time rather than commodified and treated as a job. So all of the creative industries and like these things should not necessarily be jobs. They should be things that people just do in their free time, and they shouldn't be treated, they definitely shouldn't be forms of wage labor, right? And they aren't necessarily, by the way. They're salaried positions more often than not.
Right. And what Marx classifies as commercial capital, which is capital that assists in the valorization of capital, which in the U.S., especially as we've sort of deindustrialized, we've added a lot of these commercial capital jobs like Starbucks baristas or salesmen, stuff like this. Like that stuff doesn't need to exist. It can all be automated. And it's a consequence of, capital needing to keep its surplus value high enough and keep the circuit of capital going. So like that's what salesmen do, is they help accelerate the realization of capital, the realization of real commodities that are produced in production. And that's it's not a very dignified job to sit at a desk all day and try to push, commodities on people to accelerate their circulation. Like all of this stuff can be automated, and people can be in more dignified jobs where they work much less. Yeah.
Right, and the reason you always have to focus on the blue collar is because that is general labor. Those are the people that represent labor as such in general, right? And even if we live in a more free society, a socialist society, where all these things are freed up and nobody has to work at dumb service jobs or offices, we're still going to have to do real physical labor to physically reproduce society. And that is going to be the subject of politics and culture and civilization still. And that's what makes the blue collar thing privileged from a proletarian perspective. It's like, because that's still going to be the focus for the institutions of socialism. Whereas the institutions of socialism are not going to prescribe what kind of coffee you drink. That should be totally freed up in the most anarchistic, decentralized, grassroots, whatever hippie shit you want. That should be totally free, like totally cybernetic, decentralized, free internet stuff.
Definitely.
Open source.
Definitely. That's a good point too. This D person said they wanted to hear our opinion on the lumpen proletariat. I'm trying to get them to join, but
all right, I think we should wrap it up soon because I don't really. Yeah. But lumpen. Well, I have the view that Marx had. Simple as that. It is 12, guys, and I don't know if you want to wrap it up, Eddie.
Yeah, we can wrap it up here if you're done. Appreciate everybody joining. Make sure to follow ACP Main on X. Anything you want to promote, Haas? Nope, he's gone. All right. Good live. I'll keep it going. I'm not tired yet. I'll keep it going for a little bit longer.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good. I just want to say that you're really cute.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you look really good.
Thank you.
You
Do you
look
have any
so
critiques to make, or did you just want to say that?
About the way you look?
No, political critiques.
So, what are we talking about here?
We were just inviting people to debate, but
Debate. What is your personal standpoint? Are we debating your dick size? Stop.
Wait, what do you say? All
Oh,
right,
no.
that's enough of that. Oh man, maybe we should wrap up. Oh my goodness. Hell yeah. That was hilarious. Oh, now everyone wants to join now that the mean guy's gone. Now that you got the nice one. Nope, I guess not. Alright, we'll do one more, then I'm wrapping it up. Midwest nice, yeah, baby. I can't help it. Hello, Jay.
Yo, Eddie, what's going on, man?
Not much.
What's the deal with this hard turn to the right I've noticed in some of your content? Just the Jake Shields thing is catching a lot of us off guard.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by hard turn to the right? Because, I mean, going on a podcast doesn't really make you right wing, I don't think. Did you watch the podcast?
Yeah, of course, man. And I think, obviously, you're not like a right winger, but I just think, you sort of lending your voice into that space sort of sanitizes a lot of the things that he says, and I understand the pragmatics
How
of.
so? How does going on his podcast and promoting communism to his audience amplify right wingers or sanitize them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's pretty simple. It's the pretty lukewarm pushbacks that you offered against a lot of the like pretty unmasked neo-Nazi shit that dude talks about was a little disappointing. But I guess more than that,
Give me an example. And say Yahtzee. Don't use that word.
I got it. I got you. Yeah, I mean, mostly the Yagoda stuff that he went into, the Judeo-Bolshevism stuff he went into. I don't know if you know any of the other content that he brings onto his page, and I guess I'll hedge that also by saying I understand the pragmatics of trying to like reach people outside of a certain echo chamber. Like you're not looking for people who understand socialism beyond just the sort of basic tenets. You're looking for people who don't understand socialism, and you're looking for people who have been sort of, for all intents and purposes, brainwashed against it. And a lot of these people do find themselves sort of sitting in that right-wing, conservative, reactionary space where, like,
right. So I'm trying to reach anybody who's working class, regardless of where they're at. But I mean, I told Jake Shields that it was untrue, that the Bolsheviks were completely run by Zionists, and I even tripped him up on that point. Not that was my goal. My goal, he didn't want to have a debate because he's not as well read about politics. He basically just asked me questions that he had about communism. And when he brought that one up, I said it's not true. But of course, all communist movements accept working class Jewish people. And I got him to say, I asked him this question. What is it that gives people power? Is it their ethnicity? Or is it the fact that they own capital? Does a working class Jew have any power? And he said, no, absolutely not. You're correct on that. I mean, what pushback would you have liked me to give beyond that?
I guess maybe pushback isn't the right word, but more so understanding that like the things that you put out into the universe don't exist in a vacuum. And I think that the externalities socially.
What I put out on Jake's show was the, Marxism, Leninism. And, obviously he doesn't agree with that, but his audience got exposed to a Marxist-Leninist voice for maybe only the second time since, Jackson was on his show.
Totally. I think what you're saying and what I'm saying aren't even necessarily mutually exclusive. Like they're not mutually exclusive at all. I think it is odd, the sort of incredulity with which you're approaching a lot of the criticism that you're receiving about this. And this is me saying that I understand the pragmatics of the decision. Right, if the decision was to
I
expose
don't.
people
I
to
just don't think the
socialism?
criticism's right. I mean, why would I not talk to people in the combat sports community, which is
I
my
never said don't
community,
talk to
who have giant
dude,
platforms? You know, if I can spread
Eddie.
Marxism, Leninism to their audience, which is what I did, and you can go read the comments of that
Totally,
video.
man.
There's a lot of people, you know, saying that this changed their opinion about communism, and maybe there's some people I didn't change their minds, but I planted some seeds. Right, and then maybe someone else will come along,
I'm
and
sure that there are plenty of
they'll continue to move
neo-Nazis.
in the right direction, you know. But if we stay in these echo chambers, we're not going to do shit, man. That's
Yeah.
what the left has done for way too long
Of
now.
course, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that fundamentally. It's more so that the incredulity with which you just responded to that, where you said I don't think the criticism is valid. I used to train at Henzo's in Midtown for 15 years. I know a lot of people who know Jake. Jake is not a good guy. Okay, he's not a good person.
Are the Gracie families good guys?
Not
Are
at
they
all.
good
Oh my
guys?
god, I used to train there for.
So
a
why
good
are you
reason.
training with them? How
I said
dare
I
you?
used
How
to.
dare you?
I used to.
How dare you
I-
give a platform to these right-wing jujitsu guys who support
Eddie.
Bolsonaro?
Eddie, I stopped training there when Leo, Daniel, and Gregor got arrested for beating the shit out of a dude in Central Park.
Okay.
I made that decision. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the decision that you made to go on the podcast. It's more so that you're
we're having a
sort of
switch
critical. It's just an odd response that you're offering, and I'm not even saying that I disagree with your decision to go on.
It's because normal
It's
people
more-
don't think this way, the same way that terminally online leftists think. You know, they don't think this way, like, oh, this guy said things, you know, that are bad or that are bigoted. You can never talk to him, even though he has thousands of followers that you can reach with your ideology that you want to spread. You know, like
Eddie, did you hear me? Did you ever hear me say you can't go on and talk to him?
no, I don't
'Cause I've
understand the
said-
point that you're saying that I don't care enough about people's criticisms of me. Yeah, I don't go through my Twitter mentions and, you know, let it affect me all day. I don't know what you want from me.
Yeah, it's clear that you don't understand what this is all about. So
What
I
is
hope
it all
that
about?
you-
Explain it to me.
I don't think you understand the basic tenets of how oppression affects material conditions. I don't think you understand what
Okay,
racism
explain to
is.
me.
What
Explain it to
bigotry
me.
is. Explain what to you? Dialectical materialism? You want me to like go down the rabbit hole? I think you know what that means. I'm
I
talking
don't
about how these
understand
things-
what point you're making, my friend.
how you don't understand why people would think it was a bad idea for you to not to go on Jake Shields' podcast, but the incredulity with which you are responding to people in good faith who are genuine, who believe that.
How would you like me to respond? By like taking a whip and hitting myself in the back and being like, yes, it was I still believe it was a good idea to go on, but you know, you're also right that I shouldn't have gone on. Like what I don't agree with them that it was a bad idea to go on. It was a great idea. It helped me spread Marxism,
again,
Leninism to a lot of new people. I don't
So when
agree.
I
I don't
said-
know what you what do you want me to do?
Again, never said you shouldn't have gone on, but it's just it is
Right,
odd
but what are
that
you
it's so
saying? What should I have done? What path should I have followed?
I think that in response to this, the acknowledgement that you may have made a misstep, or that you
But
may
I
not
did.
have sort of. So you think you're perfect? You didn't make a mistake.
No,
There's nothing.
no,
you
I've
could have
made
done better?
I've made
Of
missteps, but
course.
in the case of the Jake Shields podcast, absolutely not. And you know, I'm not gonna lie in order to appease people. I'm not gonna pander to people who are mad at me for leaving the echo chamber.
It's again not about leaving the echo chamber because I think it's a good thing. I think it's that there
I really
are.
don't understand what you're saying.
Of course you don't understand, man. You don't do a good job of listening to people often, especially people who are not in the echo chamber, man. Like this is what I'm saying is.
Okay, I'm listening to you. Explain to me exactly what I did wrong. Give me an example of what you think concretely that I did wrong in this Jake Shields situation.
I think not addressing the fact in plain words that you acknowledge that he is yet an explicit Yahtzee sympathizer. He is an explicit Holocaust denier, and he
You
is
said that?
So, but I'm just you acknowledge that you acknowledge that. So you acknowledge that.
Yeah, and I argued against him on it on the podcast. And if you go on my Twitter account, I have many responses to Jake, critiquing him when he pushes that stuff, and citing literature like Norm Finkelstein's H-Cost Industry to explain where his misconceptions actually come from. And even if I don't ever get to Jake, I don't really care because I'm trying to get to his audience.
Right. So, first of all, I've never seen you post any of that stuff, at least not in the comments in response to the post when you were like glazing him about, well, this is one of my favorite UFC fighters, which, again, I don't believe that that's true. Like, I watched those Strikeforce years. He definitely wasn't one of your favorite fighters. Like, you know that he wasn't.
I love all the... You have no idea. Bilal Muhammad's my favorite fighter right now. I love all the boring wrestlers.
No, well, I mean, I love Bilal Muhammad for reasons that have nothing to do with his fighting. I think that's true too. I just don't believe that you like.
Right, but I like George St. Pierre too. I like anybody who uses grappling and top control because I'm a wrestler. So yeah, Jake Shields was one of my favorite fighters, and I don't agree with all his positions, and I do think a lot of his positions are extremely harmful, which is why I went on his podcast to push back against them.
Okay, so I think that might be the part that you're. And I don't know if it's you being like defensive.
I've said that repeatedly, brother.
If you have said it repeatedly, you have made it. You
go on my X account right now. I've been posting stuff in counter to Jake's certain positions that Jake has all week. But there's also a lot of things I agree with him on. Yeah, I mean Jake Hughes stuff, but I do think he's anti-establishment. He said, we both agree that the system needs to be changed. So, to not go to talk to you've said, I actually don't.
You don't
want. All right, I'll let you go. One more chance, then I'm going to move on.
Good luck, buddy. Have fun. I hope you're not being taken advantage of and that you're okay. So, best of luck. I think you are being taken advantage of by ACP. That's my feeling.
I'm in the leadership of ACP. I was at the founding of the party. I was in the plenary committee. The ACP is the product of me, Carlos, and Noah. ACP leadership is, almost one half Midwestern Marx. The ACP, not to take too much credit because it's a collective organization, but the ACP was the product of years of hard work by the institute, the Midwestern Marx Institute that I founded. To say that I'm being manipulated, but by who? I mean, the ACP was the product of my labor, our collective labor, but mine was prominent in that.
I think that the response that the movement has given to ACP over the last 90 days or so is what I'm talking about, and the fact that I think What movement? The larger American communist movement or North American communist movement?
Like what? CPUSA?
I'm not even talking about CPUSA. I'm not talking about any sort of abstract vanguard movement. I'm talking about self-identified.
The response is pretty good. We had 80% of PCUSA left to join us. Much of CPUSA left. Just a few months, we've accomplished a ton. Tens of millions of impressions on every platform, adding chapters in almost 30 states, accomplishing a ton of on-the-ground work, laying out our party program and constitution, which have gone viral on the internet.
And the overwhelming majority of self-identified communists and socialists in the United States
are rat lips who have achieved nothing.
Yeah, totally, and I mean, you and I don't disagree
why would
on
I care
the
what they
lack
think?
of efficacy. Because for the same reason why you care why neo-Yazis are exposed to socialism, and that you understand that this is praxis. You need to
we've
have
had
some
also
sort of
tons of
pragmatic
people
approach.
leave PSL, and especially Haas has been good at most of the infrared community is people who were trapped in these rad-lib echo chambers, who we were able to actually introduce to orthodox Marxism and Marxist-Leninist theory. You'd be very surprised how many of the ACP members are former leftists.
I would be surprised, but I guess I would also caution you to think less about card-carrying members, or obviously not actually card-carrying members, but people who self-identify with specific parties within the movement, but also that you exist within an echo chamber and within that level of taxonomy, right? You're talking about the sort of broader continuum, left to right. I think when you understand sort of how deep you are into the movement, you have blind spots. And I think that my feeling and my sentiment as someone who is not a direct organizer is that you have sort of refocused through a lens of pragmatism, sort of refocused on this reactionary right-wing base that is and to your point, would benefit from socialism largely more than anyone else in the country. and like bringing that to those people is a good thing. But I think that like you're sort of, and I'm not going to use this word in any way other than like the denotation, like you are.
So if you're not an organizer, I mean, like pretty much every successful communist in history has said that we learn through practice and we learn through experience. So why lecture other people on how they should be organizing when they're reaching millions and you're not doing much on the ground at all? No offense.
Well, I mean, me not identifying as a Marxist organizer doesn't mean that I'm not doing things on the ground. I'm involved in the community. I have brought Norman Finkelstein to a little over a dozen college campuses in the Northeast of the United States. I've worked with SJB for the last 10 years. I've been in the Palestinian.
That's good stuff, but what does this have to do with achieving socialism or
I guess no, totally. Listen, Eddie, I'm not here trying to tell you that you're like a bad guy doing bad things or that you have bad intentions. I think that what me and a lot of other people in leftist spaces have been concerned about is just not your approach, because I think that your approach is valiant because you want to do good things.
You know what I learned, Jay? You know what I learned being on the left? Because I was one of these, I wasn't like Haas. I didn't come out and immediately start going after the left right away. I did try to appease these rad libs. I did try to appease them. And I learned that if you stick to an orthodox Marxist line or a Marxist-Leninist line, they will never accept you. They will bully you. They will attack you. They will use identity politics to beat 100%. You over the head. If you don't make identity politics your main core focus. And that's why the ACP has been so successful, because people, including people on the left, are damn sick of that.
I don't disagree with that, but I also think what you're saying, what I'm saying, aren't mutually exclusive at all. Like within, like what you're describing is pragmatic and necessary. What I'm describing is like an acknowledgement of the fact that like there may have been some missteps, and you don't have to like.
Sure, what were they though?
Dude, I mean, the softness, I mean, even right now, I have never heard you say anything about Jake Shields in response, at least on your TikTok, man. Like,
go on my ex. I haven't talked about Jake Shields on my TikTok at all, other than a clip of me talking about communism.
So I think that maybe that is
go on my ex account.
I think it was just surprising considering how many people were surprised.
This is just concern trolling. That's enough of that. Sorry, Jay. There was no point. It's just, I'm so tired of the concern trolling, dude. Like, what was even the point of that argument? I'm not saying you shouldn't have gone on Jake Shields, but you should have, given more credit to the leftists who were criticizing you for going on Jake Shields. Like, what are we talking about here, bro? What are we talking about? Officer Real Talk, what up?
What's up, brother? I was trying to reach you in the comments earlier, but you're a little busy.
Gotcha.
So I've never talked to you before, but I work in law enforcement. I am more socialist, entering teaching soon. My question for you was with your party, which I do follow, and I'm actually subscribed to a lot of your guys' stuff. Where does I'm sorry, are you open for questions right now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Where does like a law enforcement, like a security force within like an incoming government underneath your party kind of fall in, if there'd even be one?
Great question. This is laid out in our party program, and actually, since we're on TikTok, if people want to go follow the ACP main TikTok, I've been posting on it more lately, and I covered this in a recent TikTok about our party program. So we want to create people's militias. We want, the community themselves to, I don't know if I can say this on TikTok, but be able to protect themselves from the forces that be in the state, which of course has a monopoly on violence. And with the seizure of political power by the working class, those people's militias could transform into a socialist police force. So the way that the police work right now, they're obviously an armed body of the state that serves to protect private property, suppress the working class, suppress mass political movements against the capitalist ruling class and the system itself. Plus, they serve this role of skimming a little extra cream off the top of the working class through fines and tickets and things like that, and then they keep the prisons filled with bodies so that the prison industrial complex can profit off of cheap labor. And under socialism, we would do away with all of that, and the police would simply become a tool of public protection. And, the only way to do that and actually concretely make that a reality is to create these people's militias, to train working class communists and organize them into... I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't get me banned, but into
I feel you.
organized
I'm
units
following
that can
you.
actually protect the people. Yeah.
No, I'm following you. Okay, so it sounds like we would take these bodies, make them more bite-sized, localize them, and then whatever the governmental body has in mind, the communities that are enforcing these laws, it'd be up to them how they kind of handle these things. So if somebody breaks one of our laws, because I'm assuming we'll still have laws because we're not anarchists.
Right. There would still be national coordination of the people's militia police forces. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's a chain. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's a chain here. And then, because I've always been under the impression that if we took away private prisons, we would incentivize the system to have better law or to engage with its populace in a way that is, it might be just more coherent, in my personal opinion. I think our system's incredibly just incoherent with its population. I don't think we do anything to suppress the actual issues with the working class. Very simple things, actually, just public option healthcare would be a major one, for example. But so essentially, so I think, I like what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to kind of get your opinion, because it's a little different talking to people like you who are organizing at a larger political level. I have found, and talking to people in my courses or in academics, than when I engage on platforms like this. It's wild on platforms like this. It is wild. I feel like everyone's anarcho-communist, and they're no, smash the system, smash everything. Nothing's going to exist. We're all going to live in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, pretty much. And academia is not too far away from that. But
No,
the
it's
only
not.
thing I would add is it even goes beyond the private prisons, because only a small percent of, the private prisons, they got to go. They got to be, abolished, and it has to be run publicly. But it's these corporations that are lobbying the government in favor of things like, the war on drugs or whatever, to keep the prisons filled with bodies, because they profit from the prison labor. They profit from the prisons themselves, like Aramark, that food company. They make all the prison food. The AT&T and the cellular companies profit from the prison phone calls. It's just a way to suck as much extra money out of this. Really, it's like a class of slaves, because prison labor, they can pay you as low as 12 cents an hour in some states. So it's almost like slavery, and that needs to be completely reformed. And then the other thing is the prisons need to move, or at least the way that we handle drug addiction needs to move towards a focus on rehabilitation versus just, straight up punishment.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, whenever I think about punishment, I more so think about the people who are knowingly and purposely perpetuating violence against people. So for me, if you said I want to punish the dealers, I'd probably say okay. Although I do think
that's what I said in my video today. Yeah, instead of punishing the people who use, you punish the people who deal, and then you put Bill Gates in a gulag. You got to create space in the prisons for them.
The way my boy Elon's going, he might have to go too.
He's going.
Yeah, he's wild.
Absolutely.
He's incredibly wild right now. But hey, man, look, thanks for giving me the time of day. I really appreciate you answering my questions, brother.
You bet. Thank you for coming on, man.
No problem, man. Have a good night.
You too. Yo, Profe, what's this guy want? You want to debate, you dumb son of a bitch?
Bro, ACP is fascist.
What? Prove it.
Yes, bro.
Prove it.
They're fascists. They like discipline. They like working out. They like women. They're all straight. They're fascist.
Well, I'll have you know that ACP founding member Noah Krachevik is a trans woman who you just misgendered. So
Bro, how
you're
dare you,
actually the fash.
how dare you talk about Noetta like that? That's so fucked up, dude. That's not even funny. I'm turning in my membership card.
No, we're not going to be able to collect your
Buttfuck
dues
Alaska.
anymore.
I'm organizing the fucking Hicks in Buttfuck, Alaska, and you're out here fucking misgendering our fucking supreme leader. Noetta. You know what, bro? I saw some black Israelites today.
Oh,
and I was
again?
like, yeah, I did. And they're talking about like Jesus and shit. And I was thinking like, bro, we gotta do this with Haas, you know?
What?
we gotta get people to fucking trust and believe in our chairman in the same way. We need people in every fucking street corner just going ham for the chairman.
That is the key on soapboxes.
Yes, on the background, we need a massive fucking screen, and it's just Haas screaming Allahu Akbar with the fucking RPG, and that's gonna be our recruit strategy, and that's that, bro.
I like it. All right, I have to kick you off now. You're going to get me banned. Talking about the black Israelites and stuff. TikTok's gonna crack down.
This is not Carlos, by the way. Fuck off, all of you saying this is Carlos. You guys are pieces of shit. Fuck you.
Alright, he's gotta go. I shouldn't have even let him on. That was absolutely not Carlos. That was one of our strongest haters. Oh man, who else do we got here? Who's requesting? Kyle just texted me, "You're welcome." He told him to come join and mess with us. That is so funny. I think Carlos is out with his wife right now. Probably enjoying a good time on a Saturday night. That man works incredibly hard with his brain, and he just got back from Venezuela, where he got to meet Maduro, by the way, and hear Maduro talk, and he met Hugo Chavez's son, a lot of other cool stuff. So I see some infrared people requesting. We'll let them on if we can't find any like good debates or whatever. Damien.
Hi, can you hear me?
Maduro, yes.
Why would you cut me before? I want to talk to you guys.
Why we what?
You cut me before. I want to talk to you. You cut me before. I want to talk to you a bunch of questions.
Oh, I don't remember that. I don't remember you coming up. Sorry.
Okay. Actually, since you mentioned Nicolas Maduro, I want to talk about him because I'm a fan of Hugo Chavez, but Nicolas Maduro, I don't like him, what he's doing with Venezuela.
Oh, why not? Where are you from, by the way, if you don't mind? Mexico? Okay, yeah. Why not?
Well, I don't like, for example, the economy. I think he's not doing a very good way and doing inflation.
What would you do differently?
I feel like it'd be different to change the economy, like no relies too much with gasoline or petroleum. I don't know how to say in English, to be honest.
Yeah, the reason they're dependent on gasoline isn't because of Maduro or the Socialist Project. It's because in the very early 1900s, they discovered the largest oil reserves on Earth in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. So that's when Western corporations started exploiting it, of course. And the only kind of capital that Venezuela could get at that point was the oil drills, the oil wells, the thing, and all the surplus of that oil wasn't being reinvested in the Venezuelan economy and used to diversify. It was being sucked out by Western corporations and shareholders. And this made it extremely difficult, or this makes it extremely difficult for the socialist project to diversify the economy. But that's like the main thing they're focusing on, is using that oil wealth to, for one, social welfare programs, building hospitals, building schools. And that's why there's been a lot of actually social gains in Venezuela that the U.S. has tried to undo through economic sabotage and the sanctions. But they've also tried to diversify the economy. For example, I guess this isn't diversifying production. There are examples of that, but like Iran has been doing these joint deals with Venezuela to set up public grocery stores, which they're trying to also establish food sovereignty. I don't know if they have yet. They might have established food sovereignty recently, but they're trying to become entirely self-sufficient so that despite the U.S. sanctions, they can feed their people and take care of their people. It's just a really difficult situation when you're under an economic blockade from the U.S. But, I agree that there's more that could be done. Only about 20% of the Venezuelan economy is in state hands. I think there are some more industries that could be nationalized. I think there are CIA plants like Juan Guaido running around Venezuela and causing trouble, sabotaging the system. And they should just, be Marxist-Leninists and throw them in jail. Stop trying to appease the U.S. It would be my critique of Venezuela.
Interesting. I want to talk about the relationship with you and the Hispanic people, because you talk about in the Communist Party of America. What would be your approach about the Hispanic people in USA?
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
Just in general?
Mostly, yes, but especially the Chicanos and Mexicans, that they have to work and be exploited in and pretty much every field that the United States does, especially right now with the new president that we have in Mexico. There's this big tension between, that's going to be probably next year, between Donald Trump and Chimba.
Yeah, we want to organize them so long as they're working class and down for the struggle. I talked to a labor organizer who works with the exact kind of communities that you're talking about the other day, and he was actually a communist in Mexico who was like in the mountains, as a guerrilla. He was hardcore, and now he's in the U.S. He's got connections to the Morena Party, and he's organizing Chicano and Latino or Mexican American workers in Chicago. And, we immediately tried to establish a connection with him because that would be huge to have, any kind of connection with the Mexican American working class. So, yeah, it's all about class for us,
I want to talk about a little bit about Canada. You say that you want to incorporate Canada with USA.
Yes.
How you plan to do that exactly?
Well, we've got chapters in Canada, so we're actively working to organize in Canada too. And Canada really doesn't have any sovereignty. They're still essentially a colony. There are a handful of mining companies in a Maple Leaf Cape, and if imagine we have a revolutionary uprising in the U.S. Any kind of revolution in the U.S. that just leaves Canada behind, allows Canada to be capitalist. For one, we can't do that to our Canadian comrades. And for two, Canada would be used as a launching off point for regime change efforts against the new U.S. Socialist Republic. So we have this vision of a unified America where, yes, national and cultural, including Canada, where national and cultural differences are respected and protected. But the civilization state, like what China has, where you have many different nations within one state. I think that's the future. I don't think, balkanizing and splitting countries up into smaller groups, separatism is the answer. And it makes so much sense for the U.S. to unify with Canada. There's almost very little difference in the culture. We're controlled by the exact same mega corporations and shareholders. The Canadian state is nothing but a puppet of the U.S. state. It goes along with everything we do. So to have an American revolution and leave Canada behind, to me, we just can't do it.
I have a question about Quebec, for example. What do you do with that? You would support?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have a chapter in Quebec, but we're constantly. I don't know if we've even come to a solid position on this because, Stalin supported Quebec sovereignty, supported them as their own
Yeah, I think
nationality.
that's one of the bad things of Stalin. Like, I support the Stalin, but in that decision, I don't support it. I think, like, no offense to Stalin, to anybody, I think that's a big error, like supporting any separatist movements.
Yeah, I
especially
kind
for
of
Quebec.
agree with you. I kind of, that's kind of where I lean on this position too. I think that Quebec should be part of the unified socialist America or socialist republic, and they should just have their national, sovereignty and cultural differences protected, like the Uyghur Autonomous Zone in China, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Autonomous Republic monkeys in the comments says, yeah, exactly like that.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You got any other questions, brother?
That was mostly my questions. But anyway, I want, if you want to still talk, we can still talk. But if you want me to go, I can go.
I'll probably move on to someone else so we can hit some more questions. But I appreciate you; those were good ones. If we kicked you off earlier, it was just because we were looking for debates earlier. So
understandable.
Yeah. All right. Peace, bro. Thanks for coming on.
Peace. Thank you.
Should we let Carlos back on? I was gonna let Seraph. Are you still here? I was gonna let you on. He must have gone to sleep. All right, one more time. Yo, you better not get me banned.
Bro, do not let Carlos back on. That dude's a jerk. All right, listen up, bro. Listen up.
That's bigoted, by the way, because Carlos is Mexican, but I'm listening.
Stop anti-Semitism, hashtag. Listen up, bro. I see people talking about PCV in the comments. All right? Let me tell them what's happened. By the way, this is not Carlos.
No, this is some other Venezuelan guy that I met.
I was not in Venezuela like 4 days ago. Listen. Here's what happened with PCV. Venezuela has a law that if a party breaks its constitution, the state can legally intervene in order to rectify that rupture with the constitution. So think about like when ACP gets reconstituted as the Communist Party, it's premised on the fact that the old Communist Party had to break with its constitution in order to continue its path of tailing the Democrats, because the base, which is eventually what ACP is made up of, is against that policy. So it had to break with democratic centralism. Well, if we had here in the US the law that Venezuela has, there would be no ACP because the people that led that effort to reconstitute the party would just be in power, because the party had to break with the constitution in order to sustain its position. So that's what happened with PCV. Within PCV's constitution in Venezuela was supporting this Chavista process. And the leadership, which is like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but in old cartoons, there's like fucking 3 kids in a trench coat that try to sneak into a movie theater to watch an X-rated movie.
What movie? Little Rascals?
Yeah, Little Rascals. Some fucking movie. I don't know. These fucking the image of like the kids on fucking each other's shoulders with a fucking trench coat. You know, that's what the fucking PCV you see in the social medias. That's what it is. It's like this one dude that wears a leather fucking suit top and like 7 other dudes. That's what's being called PCV by all the other fucking people that call themselves communists in the West, including the Marxism-Leninism today people, which all they have to do is ankle bite us, but whatever. I'm not even talking about them right now. The real PCV leadership over it was handed over to the cadre, which is literally tens of thousands of people. I sat down with their secretariat, with 3 out of the 7 secretariat members, and these people are with Maduro, they're with the Chavista process, and there's tens of thousands of them. And every single rally that Maduro does around the country, these motherfuckers are there in the front lines with the process. So what ended up happening was that the people that have the logins and the social media information, which the Venezuelan state, of course, cannot access, are the old leadership. So in terms of
Oh, they
social
need to
media,
seize that, bro. Come on, Maduro. This is what I'm talking about.
yes,
Seize them social media accounts now.
this is exactly what has happened. They build up over 2 decades a social media following, and now the people that betrayed the party are the ones that are in control of the social media. So everyone around the world thinks that what's going on is what they say is going on. But in reality, in Venezuela, those people are completely irrelevant. They're like 8 to 15 fucking cats that have nothing to do with the party and that have literally no cadre. Like there's no one in that section of the party. And all they're doing is chalking up as state repression their own failures. So when they fail to actually change the leadership of the party and do all these other things, they chalk up to state repression what is a genuine commitment by the cadres to not break with the Bolivarian process and to not become essentially tools of empire, which is what they have become. So that's the real PCV is pro Maduro, and here's the fucking red pill. They're pro ACP. They absolutely fucking love us. And they recognize that if we had the same legal conditions that they had, we would just be like the equivalent of them. We would just be like the fucking CPUSA, but we don't have that legal condition.
Right, and it's definitely, I mean, it's like a psyop in the U.S. You know that, whatever organs of class power that represent the capitalist class are pushing this kind of stuff, and it's the most sketchy, anonymous, left-wing accounts who are pushing this. Support the PCV and support the overthrow of the Maduro government. But one thing I know about Venezuela after studying them for a long time, and I bet you this anonymous person who I'm talking to right now, who's definitely not Carlos, would agree with after being to Venezuela, maybe or maybe not a couple times. The Chavistas, the actual Chavistas, not these 3 kids in a trench coat pretending to be PCV and running the social media accounts. The actual Chavistas will never break with the Bolivarian process, especially while it's under attack from U.S. imperialism. They will never, badmouth their country and badmouth their government on social media and lend credence to U.S. State Department narratives. They have been the base of the revolution since day one. It's been a grassroots, ground up movement like all, revolutionary movements are. And they are some of the most dedicated people in the world, and a lot of them are, we see like Venezuela tries to appease the West a little bit too much. And they're doing this, more democratic form of socialism. But a lot of those people are straight up Marxist Leninists, they're with us. And they will give anything for the Bolivarian revolution and the revolutionary process. So
that's one of the main things in this period of time that I was definitely not there, because I'm not Carlos and I didn't come in the Mayflower, as someone said earlier. That's definitely one of the things that I saw. Like, all of them consider themselves Marxist-Leninist. Like, all of them. I'm talking like mid-level cadre, high-level cadre. They all consider the process that they're a part of as a Marxist-Leninist process. And they're in the stage of that process where they recognize that it's completely irrelevant how it is that they govern. The US is going to continue calling them authoritarian, totalitarian, and all the other bullshit. So they're kind of getting a little bit more radical politically. They're going to solidify the control of the party. They're going to solidify political control in the areas where the opposition has reigned for the last few years. And economically, they're going to try to imitate China's model. One of the things that's really big in Venezuela with the population itself is sort of branding lifestyle, where they have 2 options between a fried chicken joint that's Venezuelan and fucking KFC. They're going to go to KFC 9.5 times out of 10. In the mall that I was like right next to, there was 3 KFCs, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I don't think I've ever seen 3 KFCs in a city in my life. What the fuck? But so what they're going to start doing is profiting off of these franchise models that are made available to them by the U.S. and that way they don't have to do anything in terms of marketing or branding or anything like that. They just get to fucking profit from American companies and their branding and all this shit. So they're going to apply the Chinese model economically and politically, basically also the Chinese model, which is like a stronger control of the party over the state and shit. And the way that they're describing everything is just Marxism-Leninism. Like even in the commune level, I was at a few communes and all of the commune leaders were citing Lenin. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I thought this was like a, soft democratic socialism, 21st century socialism. No, they're...
Hey, how's it going?
Yo, one sec. Just let us finish this conversation. No, that sounds awesome because people, people are always telling them to diversify their economy, but they don't have, the resources to do it or the surplus to do it. So that would give them the surplus. My only concern is that if you have 3 KFCs, that's fine. But the second it becomes a joint KFC and Pizza Hut, then that's no longer socialism. You've crossed the line into capitalism. Right. You can't have these joint restaurants. That's capitalism.
It's too many KFCs. I was walking around, Eddie, and this is not Carlos, by the way. I was walking around the mall, and every floor had a KFC, and I was like, all right, what are we doing here,
That's the only franchise they can get right now. They're like, we're going to do socialism with KFC characteristics.
And there's you almost thought that the mall was like a big KFC. Because the only advertisement they had outside was a KFC advertisement. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Let's... you can't change dependency on oil for dependency on KFC.
Depends on how much chicken you have and how much of it your people want,
Let's sell some fucking steak. Let's sell some fucking ground beef.
All right, Carl, do you want to stay on and debate this guy with me? Or not?
Who the fuck is this guy?
What's up, SL28? State your critique.
No, I'm not. I'm not here to debate. I'm actually just ACP member.
Oh, sweet. What's up?
I just wanted to say hi because I don't know. I usually can never contact you in what's it called? The Telegram?
Yeah, we're pretty busy. I try to respond to the members as much as I can, but it's impossible.
Carlos is always active on Telegram.
Message Carlos. He has no life.
This is not really Carlos.
I'm not gonna lie. I was really wanting to talk to you one-on-one. I don't know.
What about?
Pretty much, I tell everyone in the Telegram that I'm pretty much a mechanic and stuff like that. And
nice.
I also have a cousin. I also have a real question that I don't even really know the answer to.
Okay, ask your question.
My cousin asked, "Oh, well, why should you like cars and stuff? Why should that be a second hobby if it's created by capitalists or if it's a capitalist industry where it's a car-dependent country?" And I say, no. Well, cars are made by labor. It's not really necessarily a capitalist thing, I was wondering what's your opinion on that.
No, yeah, it's people act like everything that's created under capitalism is bad, and we want high-speed trains connecting every city in America, especially that would be really good for rural areas like where I'm at or here in the Midwest, because if we connected ourselves via high-speed rail to the largest cities, it would lead to way more economic activity for us because those are hubs of commerce. But capitalism's growth creates the conditions for the possibility of socialism, and there are things that capitalism creates that we will keep under socialism, like the advanced technologies that we have, and that's capitalism's historical role, as Marx says, is to elevate the productive forces and the ability to create amazing things like cars. It's just that production is still done for, of course, private accumulation. But to say everything that exists under capitalism is bad and you can't enjoy anything, that is not a Marxist-Leninist position. That's straight McCarthyite propaganda that unfortunately a lot of people, including a lot of leftists, have internalized.
That's Western Marxism. Maurice Merleau-Ponty was one of the people that said that socialism is the absolute the complete negation of capitalism, and that's complete bullshit. I mean, in a
Sorry, I hope you
socialist
guys.
America, if you
I hope
like
you guys
muscle
don't.
cars,
Sorry.
hello.
I hope you guys don't hear a blowing noise. I have a phone on the computer. I'm playing War Thunder, but
No, you're good. I'll just mute you if it gets too bad.
In a socialist America, there's no reason why we shouldn't create the conditions for everyone to have a muscle car, specifically a Mustang, because Challengers and Chargers are kind of gay.
I actually own a few things.
Yo, Carlos, you're gonna get me banned. I'm disconnecting this fool. He can't handle this right now.
I
What?
actually own a few things like that as like a hobby, pretty much. Really, pretty much just mechanic stuff, and made some nice cars here and there.
That's what you're gonna have more time for under socialism. We'll have more access to. What's up, Seraph? How's it going? I saw you requesting earlier.
What's up, Eddie? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. What's going on right now?
Not much. We were just debating or answering questions. If you had any topic of conversation.
Oh, okay.
Oh, real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and hop off and let you guys open the slot for someone else. I was
Alright.
wondering if you could give me a follow back if you can.
Yeah, I got you, bro.
I
Peace.
unfortunately lost my main account and stuff because of TikTok banned it for no reason and stuff. So
Yeah, that'll happen on this app. Appreciate you, man. Great work with the ACP. Keep it up.
appreciate it. Solidarity to you.
You bet. All right. Did you have anything specific you wanted to bring to the table? Either of you, I guess.
Well, I was actually kind of interested in knowing if you've ever heard of Rocky Mountain communism.
What's that?
Well, I mean, I know you guys are like the Midwestern marks, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the institute name, obviously, right?
Right.
But I was just wondering if you ever heard of the theory that the revolutionary segment of America will most likely come out of like the BLM kind of controlled areas of the United States.
Well, where are those even? The
So the
BLM?
Bureau of Land Management mostly controls land out in the western states, and that includes like Nevada, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Montana, like those states.
And what's the logic behind that? The revolution starting there?
Well, at least in my opinion, it kind of is. The reason is because it's kind of like a new encirclement of like American peasantry, right? Because a lot of those people out in the West are like ranchers and some farmers and stuff like that, but they don't actually own any of the land, even though they are independent businesses. Whereas in the East, a lot of those farms in the East, right, are owned by mega corporations, and the people who work the land, as far as I can tell, at least, you might be different. I don't know. You can correct me, but a lot of people who work the land are actually just freelancers, and they don't actually own anything. They're just sent there to work. They don't actually own the land itself. But in the West, all the land is, it might be owned by the government, but the ranchers themselves are independent. So they actually have some political power, right? And above that, too, you also have the firefighters and the people who work for the Forest Service and stuff like that, who do a lot of work, right? A lot of proletarian work. But in the East, I don't really see any of that. A lot of the work in the East seems to be like service work and stuff like that. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, there's productive work anywhere you go on some level, but it's hard to predict where anything will pop off, or how the next uprising of the masses will look and how we'll be able to meet that as communists. But I don't know. I'll have to think about it more. The first thing that popped into my head is it reminded me of like the Escambray in Cuba, because that's a very mountainous region out in the West, and if you were to wage some kind, I don't want to get banned here, but if you were to wage some kind of struggle against your oppressors or exploiters, that would be an easy place to do it because you
Exactly.
be able to hide.
Same thing happened in Korea too. When I can't say much either because of local laws, but there were a lot of partisans in like North Korea and Manchuria who lived in the mountains and fought the Japanese there. and the reason they were able to survive is because of those mountains, right? Strategically speaking, it's just easier, right? And those people are like people in the West, at least in comparison to the East. I mean, actually, I don't really know much about Easterners, right? But from what I know, people in the West, they're like mountain men. They're super hardened by like the living conditions there. Like roads are like non-existent in a lot of these places. You know, they work real hard jobs. You know, they have real tough living conditions, and it just seems more logical to me for any kind of revolutionary segment in America to kind of arise out of this portion out of the country.
I could see it. My brother's in Idaho, and when we like moved him out there, I drove through Wyoming, and that was my first time being there, and I had never seen anything like that. I couldn't believe it. It's like a freaking desert, you know. It's just the terrain is rough. There's not any gas stations and stuff for miles and miles and miles. It's really a unique part of the country. So I can see it, especially or in Appalachia, you know, is another, because the living conditions there are horrible. And they don't like have clean water a lot of the times in the Southwest. It's like there's a lot of revolutionary potential. It's hard for me to say because I've never, you know, I'm Midwest, but I wish my brother was here. I'd ask him, but it's an interesting thing to think about.
Well, it's worth it to know that a lot of the workers movements that we had in America, a lot of the labor movements did come out of the West and the Appalachians, right? You know, the whole word redneck comes from Appalachia, and you have the Coeur d'Alene strike, of course, as well. Like a lot of the labor movement in America came directly out of the mountainous regions. And even though, I definitely agree that the Midwest is the heartland of America, 100%. It seems like the more revolutionary and more radical segments of America definitely come from the West and perhaps Appalachia as well.
You know, I'm pretty sure historically Appalachia had the highest CPUSA membership all the way up until the 60s.
Really? Well, there you go. That kind of proves the theory.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's definitely not going to, all I'll say is it's definitely not going to come from the coasts. No.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
New York is our biggest chapter, and maybe California. I mean, it's high populations, but I mean, winning the heartland is going to be vital.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think that historically speaking, if you look at other countries like even ancient Persia, right? The people that won the heartland were not the cities themselves, but rather like nomads and mountain men who came from the steppe and from the mountains in the north of Persia and Iran. And those are the people that came down and circled the cities and won over the hearts of the heartland peasantry.
That's fascinating to think about. Because I haven't thought about it too much, you know, because there's an element of spontaneity to organizing. You know, you never know where the next uprising is going to come, but I do think that's highly likely. And like, obviously I'm in the Midwest, but the thing I've been pushing even since before I was linked up with Infrared and ACP was like, you guys are so condescending towards people in the South and the West and the Midwest. Like, you're not going to have any kind of serious revolutionary movement without these people. You know, you're not going to have a revolution of baristas. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that the majority of leftist movements in the country, and there's this kind of like there's a kind of view by all Americans that the labor movement kind of comes out of people working in the service sector, right? There's this kind of like assumption that happens there, right? And it kind of runs counter to the fact that the people who really organized the workers, who really, like, for example, the Bolsheviks, right? Sure, it did come out of the cities, but the reason that they won against the White Russians, against what's his name, the White Russian leader, Kerensky, the reason they won over Kerensky is because they won over the peasantry of America. Yep. And if you refuse to kind of come down and listen to Southerners and other parts of America that a lot of leftists consider like backwards, you know, you're just going to fall into the same trap as the Mensheviks.
Yes, and it blows my mind the people who call themselves Marxist-Leninists in America and then take the positions that they do. So it's like, you know, what they have no clue what the consciousness of the Russian peasantry was like. Like, they were doing pogroms, you know, they were incredibly backwards in a lot of their views, and it was like, doesn't matter. Go down to them. It's in their interest to overthrow the czar and institute a socialist government. And then, once we expand education and stuff under socialism, a lot of those views start to go away and the consciousness of the people can be elevated. But like, if you just ignore them and condemn them and call them a basket of deplorables or whatever the hell, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people are just Hillary Clinton liberals calling themselves MLs. It's insane.
Yeah. It's actually interesting about this subject because, even China, right, which is like one of the most advanced countries in the world, technologically advanced, industrial advanced, the PRC got its beginnings in some random mountain province in the middle of China, right? It wasn't like they had a bunch of like super intellectuals, super forward-looking progressives under their control or whatever. It was like just a bunch of peasants with guns, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I mean, has there ever been a revolution that came out of the intellectual class? I mean, never the intellectual class alone. Like, I guess the Iranian Revolution had like student and intellectual involvement, but they were not the base of it.
Yeah, you have to win over the peasantry. Every single revolution has to win over the common working man. Otherwise, you'll never succeed at anything. Even the American Revolution was like that,
Yeah, true. I'm going to invite someone else up here too. Add a little.
Looks like there's a Russian guy wanting to debate you.
The debate? Oh, okay. That guy left. Good. Okay. Is it Bratislav.fluff?
Yeah, he was saying something about Lenin, I think.
Perfect.
Tovarish.
Hello.
So, guys, why you like Lenin so much? Actually, good morning, and for you, good night or good evening, I think.
Thank you.
But why like Lenin? What you think it's good about Granddaddy Lady?
I mean, there's a lot of good stuff, but to put it in the simplest terms, he understood Russia's conditions better than anybody and proposed this alliance between the workers and peasants, which a lot of mechanistic Marxists were rejecting because they had this dogmatic view that a country needed to first pass through capitalism before it could become socialist. But Lenin said the conditions in Russia here are different. Like 80-90% of the country is the peasantry. Their interest is extremely similar to the workers. Why not organize them too? And it was successful. And then once, the Soviet Union was established, Russia's living conditions got much, much better. And they defeated the Austrian painter with the mustache.
Yes. But this was not done because of these people. First of all, the big atrocities, especially against the Orthodox Christians, against the farmers, against the Cossack. I'm Cossack. They unalived so many people. There were more than 70,000 churches. When his goons came along, it were only 200 left. In Russia. I'm not talking about Georgia, I'm not talking about Ukraine, I'm not talking about all these places. So, if you say economic is good, how much blood will it cost? Innocent people. How much is good?
I mean, the revolution was happening regardless. It was an uprising that happened regardless. What the communists did, what the Bolsheviks did, was met the uprising of the people and gave them, a systematic theory and gave them and the economic plan that was able to increase literacy in Russia from I can't remember what it was, 30% to 100%. Provide nearly full employment, universal daycare, all these amazing things that from a backwards feudal country. And if the October Revolution never happened, if they would have stopped at the February Revolution, none of these economic gains would have been made. And there still would have been the violence and the fighting though. And I don't think it's accurate to say that they cracked down on the churches that hard. I think they were fairly did a lot to actually protect the Russian Orthodox Church, and there were, you got to keep in mind, especially during the Civil War, there were many different forces at play at this time.
I'm talking later, after Civil War, when they become boss with NKVD.
Yeah, what did they go around destroying Orthodox churches?
Yes,
I don't believe that was the case. I think
don't
this
believe.
is right-wing Orthodox
I live there.
propaganda.
We rebuilt churches because of this.
Which churches were burned down?
Everything. There was
Everything?
only 200 links.
I think this is right-wing Orthodox Russian propaganda in order to demonize the communists who brought the country out of a
First of all, the whole
backwards,
family fight
feudal
in
monarchy.
the Soviet Red Army. So if you think that you can make me some kind of schnazi, I don't know why you do that. Second of all, it happened. The most churches got burned or make cinema or this kind of things. This is history. You come to Russia, we show you.
I
This
mean,
is
I'm
the
not
only
denying
thing
that
what the
there
problem-
wasn't. I'm not
Yes.
denying that there wasn't any suppression. But it's. I mean,
Later, Stalin
Marxism
gave
did
freedom
used to
in
be
World War
more. Marxism did used to be more hostile to religion than like we are with the ACP now today, and like China, the Uyghur Autonomous Zone in Western China has more mosques than almost anywhere else, and Russia, of course, has made these protections where you can't even shit on other people's religions, or you get
but Russia's
punished.
not
And,
communist now.
to the right, but to the extent that communism in the past actually did crack down on religion, which has been greatly exaggerated in bourgeois propaganda, I think that's a mistake that's been corrected. Which is, Marxism is not a dogma; it's a living science. So, to the extent that there was suppression and the burning of churches, which, like I said, I think is greatly exaggerated. It is not a part of the modern communist movement. In fact, a lot of the modern socialist countries, like Nicaragua in particular, have this very Christian bent.
modern.
Venezuela calls themselves a
But I'm
Christian
talking about
socialist country.
Bolsheviks, not modern. I'm talking about Bolsheviks. You like the Bolsheviks.
Right. So you said after the Civil War, but you asked why we like
Mhm.
Lenin. Lenin would have been dead by whenever you were talking about.
With Trotsky, then later came Stalin. In the start, he hate Christianity, he go crack. But then when World War II come, he need the support. He need the fighters. And a lot of them, they are not openly Christian, but they are in the side, with the cross on their neck. And he say, okay, we need them. Okay, we is going to calm down about it. And later he was a little bit less. But you know that actually also in the Soviet Union, that if a priest is going to have a talk, he have to give.
How many
his,
of those churches do you think were burned down by the Yahtzees?
A lot.
Right. So
But
does it make
this
sense
is
to lay
late.
them all at the feet of Lenin and the Bolsheviks?
So if you let me talk. So even in the Soviet times, the priest have to give the card to the KGB officer what he's going to say when they talk, There's always a KGB officer there in the church.
Oh my God. This is
Brother,
cap.
I
This is
lived
just
here.
No, you did not live in post-revolutionary Russia.
I'm
You
from-
did not live
I
in the
born in
1920s
80s.
and 30s.
I born in
You're telling me
80s.
that there was a KGB officer for every
no,
priest?
in this-
This is
this
just
is in the-
McCarthyism,
you-
brother. You've got Russian McCarthyism, and a lot
Okay,
of
so
Orthodox Russians
did
have
you
these
live in
views.
Russia? When you been to Russia? Tell me. How
I
many
live in
Russians you know?
Russia. I'm in
How many
Moscow
Russians?
with Putin right now.
Yes, and Putin, yes.
Yes,
You
and
going to have serious,
and
serious
Zuganov just told me
conversation?
what you're saying is cap.
Listen, we grow up there.
The only
Later
priests,
religion
the only
freedom
priests
come
and religious
with
leaders
Putin.
who were cracked down on by the KGB were the Yahtzee collaborators.
No, you're talking
Well,
backwards.
I'm sure there were
I'm
some
talking about the
excesses,
60s, 70s, 80s.
Oh, okay. Then why
I
were
say
you asking
KGB,
about
not
Lenin and the
NKVD.
Bolsheviks?
No, Bolsheviks make big atrocity, but then you say, yeah, but this, okay, blah, blah. But
But
now
were
we're
the
going-
atrocities in
now
the
we're going
revolution
further
or
in
under
the
Stalin
80s.
or in the 60s
No,
and
in
70s?
the
Your
80s.
timeline doesn't make any sense. I'm
Well,
trying
I
to
mean,
learn
the
here.
You are
80s
saying,
was basically when the Soviet Union was super apathetic and cynical about everything. So I don't think you could really apply that argument to the early Bolsheviks.
no, but you guys are like, oh no, but look how good communism is. It is so free. It helps the oppressed. No, okay, that's good to take out oppressors. But you become the oppressor when you are going crazy like this.
Yeah, dude, we are oppressors. We're oppressing the bourgeoisie. When the
Yep.
churches come in and they steal money from the people, they misguide the people to fight in the bourgeoisie's wars. No shit, we're going to oppress the bourgeoisie. Of
Okay,
course,
so
the
you
churches need to be
admit
way.
that
That's who the
they were
KGB
become-
cracked down on. Well said.
But NKVD, later KGB.
Okay, right.
Yeah, you
You
have
said
to be on
KGB
facts.
though, so I was responding to
Yes,
your
KGB is 80s, 60s, 70s.
Right. So to the extent that, people in the Russian Orthodox Church were collaborating with the Austrian painter,
This is
they
not
had to
very
be
big,
cracked
my
down
friend.
upon. That's the concept of the
This
dictatorship
was
of the
not very
proletariat,
big
and it leads
because
to a much more stable society.
if you
Otherwise, you end
actually
up
look
getting
how
overthrown by
many Russian
reactionaries,
people got
falling into
unalived
chaos.
against the Germans, do you think how many people collaborate? There's not a lot of people. We hated them. There's a whole in my town.
Right,
There's
there
a
weren't a
whole
lot,
list
but
of
there
names
were
from my family
people.
members who fight, and they're all Kozak. They're all Orthodox.
That's heroic. Good for them.
So I actually have a question. So you're saying that the Soviet government supposedly was responsible for burning down these churches and destroying these churches. But
Yes,
to what
with
extent
Trotsky.
was it actually the central government doing that and not just local Soviet like reprisals?
Hey, you said it was Trotsky?
Trotsky especially, he hated.
Okay. Well, the
But
Soviets put a pickaxe in his head, so how does that help your
Yeah,
argument?
later Stalin, he don't want to share the power. There goes
Trotsky was a
Trotsky.
Menshevik,
Yeah,
though.
because
So you love
Trotsky was
Stalin?
the
So
fascist
Stalin
collaborator.
crushed.
No,
So you're saying
I
Stalin
don't.
crushed the anti-religious Trotsky? What a hero! I told you he
No.
protected the Orthodox Church. I was trying to tell you that.
Yeah, but listen, you are thinking like an American, black or white, against of it. I'm talking
No,
about
you're thinking black or
historical
white.
fact.
You're saying communism is evil, either evil or a utopia. No, it
No,
wasn't.
I
It was a
didn't.
very complicated
Did I
time.
did
The
I
idea
use
that
these
the
words?
communists
Did
just went
Mr.
around
American,
burning Orthodox
Mr. American.
churches for no reason is not true. You're talking out of your ass.
Yeah, but you are keeping interrupting me. This is the problem with Americans. You are not respectful persons. You
This
know.
is the problems with Orthodox Russian reactionaries, is they just blame everything on Stalin and they don't actually make a real point or an argument. They just ramble about, oh, the KGB burned down all my churches. The KGB killed all the priests. I can't give you any concrete examples, but trust me, I live here.
Trust me, I live here. I've been to that with
I
the
do
KGB
too. I'm in
officer.
Putin's basement right now, brother, with Zuganov. He's making tea.
If you first pronounce his name right, if you say his name.
I'm going to pronounce it like an American. I'm not going to do that cringe thing that Americans do when they're pronouncing something in another freaking language like Afghanistan or something. No, Afghanistan. I speak English.
All right. So you're going to butcher a name, but you're so proud of.
Yeah, it's called Lenin. Okay, we pronounce his name Lenin.
All right. Very funny, guys. But why you keep interrupting me every time? Now you assume that I said something what I didn't. I said not Soviet Union is totally bad because it has very good things, but
Yes,
there's also very
of
bad
course.
things. And you are talking about oppressor,
Yeah, it's
oppressor,
not a
oppressor.
utopia.
But you become the oppressed when because you need a psychopath leader for this. For a strong country like this, you need a psychopath like Tito was too. When Tito died, everybody go to war again. No, when Stalin died, you get another one, then you get a weak one. Remember the one? Gorbachev. He's the weak one. Whole country collapsed.
I'd say it started with Khrushchev, but what about China? Mao
China still
Zedong,
got-
Deng-
yeah,
I
there's
don't.
very
I don't disagree
strong
with
leaders.
you that a strong leader is very helpful for the construction of socialism, but it's not like it always is a struggle for a socialist country when the one of the original revolutionary leaders passes away. But I mean, China has shown that it's absolutely not impossible. And even the Soviet Union, lasted much longer after Stalin. And it was, I'm not a big fan of Khrushchev at all. And they were moving in a worse direction for a long time after Stalin. But they were still a much better country in terms of foreign policy and providing economic stability for their people than the U.S. I mean, to the extent that you can compare them, the Soviets were a second world country that had far less, overall wealth. Because they started as this backwards peasant economy. But, even in the later years of the USSR, they were still providing, universal daycare and healthcare and, these amazing things that we don't even have in the modern US today.
And what about all the wars they make?
What wars did they make?
Like, for example, Afghanistan.
Oh my, are you kidding me? The Soviet role in Afghanistan was heroic. I'm sorry. If
my
you listen
uncle
to
fighting
anybody
this, but
who
this
was in
was a bullshit
Afghanistan
war.
at the time, the U.S. was backing the Mujahideen, Osama bin Laden. They gave
Why
him
you keep
billions of
muting me?
dollars
I
in
know,
guns. Many of the Sunni extremist groups who are in the region today are using guns that are still from that era. They were throwing acid on the faces of girls for going to school and learning to read. And the Soviets entered that to try and stabilize the situation. They built hospitals. They built schools. They tried to protect the Marxist democratic government. Yeah, and in the end, they failed. And guess what? The extremists took over Afghanistan. And then 10 years later, the U.S. invaded the country to fight the same people that they had put in power.
Let me talk, because you...
No, you're talking nonsense.
You keep muting me like a woman.
Because you won't let me talk. You're spreading nonsense.
Nonsense. My uncle fight in this war. What was this war about in the end? About what? How many people die? For what?
Bratislav, it's worth noting that the Afghanistan war was not started by the Soviets, nor were they willing to intervene.
Why Americans tell me my history? You don't even know.
You sound like a woke leftist. I'm from Russia. You gotta listen to me. My identity, my lived experience.
Brother, you are like the Americans one. You look like a homosexual, and the other guy looks like a Nazi. What do you want?
So it's a common misunderstanding that the invasion of Afghanistan was just a sort of unprovoked invasion.
No, it was not.
Whereas when in reality, it was the government of Afghanistan
who asked. Yes.
They requested help 10 times or so before they actually
I know,
came.
but what was the purpose for this in the end? Bullshit.
To try and stabilize the
and did it
Marxist democratic government, and it didn't work because of the Yeltsin Gorbachev coup.
What would your solution be then? To do nothing?
To just let the Mujahideen take over?
Look how many people we lost for bullshit. How many Russian soldiers today?
It seems like
old people are without
if you let me
legs.
speak, it seems like you're mad over the fact that the Soviet government by the 80s was a decrepit structure that no longer served the people.
Exactly, that's why it failed. Yep.
And that's why that failed? So you're mad at
Afghanistan
not
war
being good
failed,
enough at communism. You're not mad at the fact that it was ruled by the Communist Party. You're mad at the fact that the Communist Party wasn't doing enough.
No, they didn't.
Exactly.
They didn't. You listen. If you are you are for the people, for the Rodina, yes, you are for the people. Why the fuck you go to another country?
To stabilize the border so the people don't get hurt.
Fuck this country.
Afghanistan is fairly close to Russia, and we all see what's going
Afghanistan
on.
was allowed to fall, there would have been extremists or horrible crises and refugees coming out of Afghanistan nonstop into the Soviet Union, asking.
I know. But
like the Mujahideen went into Chechnya. They were trying to stop that.
Are you going to keep muting me like a bitch?
And because of the collapse of the USSR, but it's the same thing that they're doing in Ukraine and Syria right now. They're trying to stop Sunni extremists from taking over, so they can't destabilize the Russian system.
Ukraine have no Shia or Sunni extremists.
Right. Oh, sorry, the Azov and
the Nazi, the Azov battalion.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I totally know what you mean. I'm from Donbass. I totally know what you mean. But what does it have to do with Afghanistan?
It's the same thing.
What happened to the soldiers? What happened to You see, you keep muting me.
That's because you're talking nonsense. The Mujahideen were like some of the main combatants in the Second Chechen War, and it's it's a whole network that they have across
you say I said bullshit,
dude, shut up. If Russia allows extremist groups to take over countries that are near their borders, it leads to extremists in Russia destabilizing the state.
Okay, but
how do you not understand this? How dense are you?
Was I talking about that because you keep muting me like a homosexual boy?
You're gonna get me banned. You can't say that on American TikTok.
Yeah, I know, because you're a weak country. So let me say something.
I don't disagree.
I was saying that the bullshit, because the elites, they sent soldiers to war. Now these guys lost their leg. You know what happened to these guys? Nobody respect them. Where is the help from the government then? Where was the help?
There was no help because the Soviet system collapsed because they had capitalism enforced upon them. There would have been help if they still had socialism.
No, they didn't come later. Their system was already in the midst of a total collapse by the 80s.
Yep.
They were being infiltrated.
Okay, so what's the high days of the Soviet Union, according to you guys?
So it's, okay, again, I'm going to say this again. It sounds like what you're really complaining about is the fact that communism wasn't good enough in the Soviet Union. It wasn't the fact that there was the Communist Party.
No, they have
good and bad sides. The Communist Party just didn't do enough communism.
He wanted socialism in one country and one country only. No interaction at all in other countries. I mean, that's kind of what China's doing. I mean, it sounds like you would have just preferred a Chinese-style policy of mutual cooperation and almost not isolationism, but just trade rather than what the Soviets did of trying to back revolutionary governments around the world, although they were far less involved in foreign policy entanglements than the U.S. was during the Cold War.
No, I know that. But for me, that you keep muting me first of all. Like, I don't know.
I haven't muted you in a while, brother.
Yeah, but the problem is, I was not even speaking. You were like going on a rampage, talking. I was not even done with my thing.
It's a lot of bullshit to debunk, so it's sorry, it takes a lot of words.
It's bullshit to debunk, but I was not even starting yet. How
Okay,
many
start.
of your
Go
uncles
ahead.
fight in
You
this
get
war?
one more chance.
No, okay. I ask you, how many uncles fight in this war? Your uncles in Afghan war?
In the Afghan war, well, my uncle Haz al-Din was a soldier. He fought
Russian
on behalf
soldiers.
of the Marxist democratic government there, and he took out many Mujahideen fighters. Long live my great uncle Haz al-Din.
Mm-hmm. Look at this one.
How many uncles did you have fighting it?
3.
That's
One lost
heroic.
his
Shout
legs.
out to your uncles. I don't get why you're bad-mouthing the heroic sacrifice that they made to
I
try
don't
and
say that.
stabilize this
No,
country and prevent terrorists from taking it over.
No. Why the fuck did they go there? Because they make the team members worse. Because these guys get more radicalized. These guys get more weapons from America. Now they're actually strong. Before they were just a couple of idiots.
Dude, they were funding
Again.
the Mujahideen well before the Soviets got
Yeah, but
involved.
not
That's why
like
they had to
that.
get involved. That's
Not
why
like
they had to
this
get involved.
big, Not like this. And then, okay, we lost our soldiers. For what? Donetsk, Luhansk, defense? Yes, this is good. We are fighting for our own country. We are fighting on our soil, Novorossiya. We're fighting against Azov. Yes, I was there. But
we
go to
support you.
Afghanistan, this is bullshit.
It's a war of national defense. It was the Cold War. I mean,
What do you think about the war in Syria? What do you think about Russian involvement in Syria right now? Are you against that? Because that's like basically the exact same thing.
Yeah.
No, we don't send so many soldiers.
There are thousands in there, or there were thousands in Syria.
Yeah, one of my friends now there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what's
So are
the
you
point?
against that? Because it's not,
This is-
technically, or it's not a country like Ukraine that's basically, Russia, brother, sister nation to Russia.
No,
So,
this is different.
so you're against the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan, but you're in
Yes.
favor of the Russian intervention in Syria.
Yes, we saved their government.
That doesn't square, brother.
We don't
That
want to
makes
take
no
over.
logical sense.
It has nothing to do with political ideology, like you need to be communism. It was to save Assad.
No, I think
Neither
what your
was
point
the
is that-
intervention in Afghanistan. It was to stop the Mujahideen from taking over and
Do you know
destabilizing
that
the
the
Soviets.
Spetsnaz took out
And yeah,
this
I'm sure there was
president?
I'm sure there was some ideological motivation. They wanted the people who were teaching women to read to take the country rather than the people who were throwing acid on the faces of women
Is your
for learning
point?
to
Is your
read.
point
Do
that
them.
you disapprove of the Afghanistan situation because it was a failure, and you approve of the Syria situation because it's a success? Is that what you're saying? Is that because
No.
Syria is a success, you approve of it, and because Afghanistan was a failure, you disapprove of it?
No, in Syria, we are like the support. We're not the main fighters. In Afghanistan, we were main fighters because Afghan fighters, they do shit. They were like, some of them did, but most of them didn't. So we did most of the heavy lifting. Why the fuck we
Yeah.
are fighting most of heavy lifting in another country? If they don't want to, fuck it. Now Syria, we're fighting very hard.
Because
Just
Afghanistan
support.
is right next to you. I mean, I don't understand how this is hard to comprehend. If for
It's the
some
same as
reason,
Ukraine.
if for some reason, like let's just assume that Mexico and Canada were like, and the U.S. were all like socialist governments or whatever. Let's say some imperialist power decided to invade Mexico. We would help the Mexicans because they're right on our border. We would help our allies. We're not like isolationists. And the Soviet Union wasn't isolationist either. We can disagree about Soviet policy, but when you look at it rationally and geopolitically, you can see how logical of a thing it was for the Soviets to involve themselves in Afghanistan, right? Even though it was a failure.
I mean, like even geopolitically, Afghanistan is bordering Pakistan, which has historically always been a very strong ally of the United States, and it was the Pakistani intelligence services which basically funded the original Mujahideen.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, if you have Afghanistan and you have Pakistan acting as basically bases for
America,
what you would say is your biggest enemy, then they would be surrounded on three fronts, not only in Europe, not only in the Asia Pacific, but also in the Middle East.
It's the same. It'd be the same as letting Banderites control Ukraine.
No, but if you
They
look
had
at
to fight against it.
military wise, okay, they should take the big cities, but they did. They did go to the mountains. What the fuck we want in the mountains? Let them fucking live and fuck goats in the mountains.
Oh my god, you're gonna get me.
Sorry.
The thing is, even if you take the cities, we saw it here as Americans. It's very difficult to just hold a country by the cities. The insurgent movements thrive in mountains, in rural regions, and they have the ability to project power within the cities.
But why was not Afghan fighters so much? You know why it was the Soviets who go there so much? Too big.
To protect themselves from getting the same reason. Why, would you say that about people in the Donbass? Why don't they do it all themselves?
I was in DPR. Yeah, but this is different.
Right,
war.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Would you say they should just do it all
No, because
themselves?
this is
Why are the
Novorossiya.
Russian troops involved? Because they
No,
don't
this is
want
not-
Banderites to run the whole country and
First
launch
of
a
all,
NATO
Putin let
intervention
us
against
fight alone 10
against
years.
broader Russia.
Yeah, but Putin let us fight for 10 years alone.
All right,
without
this
any
conversation is very tired. Let's move on from the Afghanistan war. Give us one more point about the Soviet Union, why it's evil and bad, and then we're gonna move on.
I never said evil or bad.
Right. But why do you? I don't even know what was your point. You hate Lenin, and then that somehow brought us
He
to the
was claiming
Afghanistan
that
war.
Well, we were just talking.
He was claiming that the Soviet Union, the early Bolsheviks, burned down Orthodox churches.
Yes.
That was his original claim.
Yes. It was it was for me like, okay, you like, but I don't like when the oppressed become the oppressor. This is what I mean, you know?
That is literally the point of Marxism and Leninism. This is called the dictatorship of the workers.
So, Bratislav,
Every state has a monopoly on violence and uses it to prop up one class versus another. When the capitalist class regained power in the Soviet Union, now Russia, as I'm sure you know, it was a disaster. It was a disaster for the people.
Bratislav, I'll explain something to you. I don't know how much you're familiar with this, but during the Tsarist era,
yes,
clerics and Orthodox priests, obviously a lot of them were good and a lot of them were integrated within the community, but also a large number of them were corrupt, and they basically
bishops. Yeah.
They basically scammed the local populace and the peasants, and they took money from them. They took these sort of what you could equate to bribes. And when the Soviets took power, it wasn't that the Soviet Union, the central government, had them all killed. It was actually, and this happened in China as well, but it was that the local peasants that were fed up with what had happened to them for such a long time, they went out by themselves and carried out reprisals against those people.
Yeah.
So,
if you think
it wasn't
that you
all
have to
from the
sit
top
there.
down, is what he's saying.
Not
Similar.
all, of course, not all. You have always psycho groups who go psycho, angry people.
So,
Just
what
like-
kind of state would you support? Because this is the Marxist view. Every state in history
It's corrupt.
has a monopoly. No, every state in history has. There's some corruption, of course, but every state in history has a monopoly on violence and serves to suppress one class. So, would you rather have 1990s Russia? Capitalist Russia, where the economy is being pillaged and people are falling into poverty and homelessness and degradation and the sex trade and the drug trade? Or would you rather have a stable Russia where state power is in the hands of the workers and it's used to defend against regime change efforts and whatnot? Like, honestly, Putin's policy has shifted Russia much closer to what they were during the USSR era than what they were after the collapse in the early 90s.
I will tell you. You ask me something, I will tell you. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Cossack?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Cossack. You know what is Cossack? Cossack people are small community, free people. Free people. We don't want to have any war. We don't want to. Everybody have vote. Women from the 1400s. Women have vote. Men have vote. Every year new leader. We did very good. I think that big government is always bad. And also, yes, Putin is good, but he's not like Soviet Union, because you have more freedom, far more freedom.
In what
And
way?
90s was the fuck up from Russia. It's very sad for us to see what happened there.
Yes.
So
In
I
what way does
think a lot
Putin
of
give
your
more freedom?
grievances.
Oh, go ahead, Step. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think a lot of your personal grievances regarding the Soviet Union come because you were born in a time in the 80s when the Soviet government was undergoing a complete collapse. And that was basically your only experience with what it would be. And you had to live through, of course, the 90s, which was a terrible time for you guys. But I don't think you could really attribute that to like really what the mission of the Soviet Union was, like, especially in the times of Lenin or Stalin.
And you like Putin. What has Putin done? Putin's cracked down on oligarchs. He's
very
kicked
good.
out Western interests, and he's, gotten involved in Syria and Ukraine. And what you're saying, those are the things that you're also saying that you don't like about the Soviet Union. And I get it. Like, you were born into a crazy historical time. I understand why people in Russia have the consciousness that you do, but I think you're, laying at the feet of Lenin and communism a lot of things that weren't their fault or that they actively fought against.
No, Lenin, no. Stalin, maybe. Stalin, I can accept. Lenin, no.
That's what every Russian says. You guys love Stalin, but you won't accept Lenin.
I think a lot of the problems that people hold with Lenin was because it was during a time of war, and it was like a sort of a revolutionary war where everything was in chaos, so there wasn't this level of order. But if it weren't for Lenin, Stalin wouldn't have been able to really come in and implement that sort of order.
I know. You need to start to go a very good foundation. But also, you guys, I understand what you say, but you also have to see a little bit out of the box and look at the negativities more, so you can understand two sides. Now, I know that I'm born in the 80s, but of course my whole family born earlier. Now, some people have nostalgia. They say it was far better, Bratislava. It was so good. We were free vacation, and I know that. But it's also, I say, but can you say whatever you want? No. You cannot. This is dangerous. You see what I mean?
You can't say whatever you want under Putin.
So you can. I swear, I live there. I swear,
we can't even say what we want in the American.
It's more free in Russia than in America. I swear.
So,
it probably is. That's probably accurate. And I'm not anti-Putin, so it's hard to compare. And modern Russia, they had, and Putin has the ability of looking back in hindsight and, like you said, learning from the mistakes of the Soviet Union. But his policies have been. It's a recalibration that's almost moved them more what I would call, left wing, closer to. He's almost acting.
He's not a right wing, actually.
What?
He's not. Everybody in West say he's extreme right, blah blah blah, dictator, but he's actually moderate in Russia.
That's what I'm saying, right? He's stabilized the country from this right wing neoliberal shock therapy that was induced on them in the early '90s to, he's. What does he say? Anyone who says the Soviet Union was terrible is an idiot, and anybody who wants to bring it or has no heart, and then anyone who wants to bring it back has no brain. And I don't agree with that, but he has the benefit of hindsight of studying the Soviet mistakes. It was an absolutely necessary experiment, and without it, who knows how backwards Russia would have been for years. It was. The early years were the fastest increase in life expectancy and stuff that had ever been seen in human history. They probably would have got rolled by Germany, if it wasn't for the industrialization policies of Stalin. So you got to give communism its due, and what it did for the country.
Yeah. So listen, I always say, everybody have to understand one thing: without Stalin, we would never win this, because we would never win this one with Tsar, never. We needed a bigger united country, a stronger industry, everything. And he didn't back down, so we won. And the West still hate us for it, Sukov say. He's right. Yes,
yep,
but
they'll never forgive you for it.
For me, you guys have to also look more, dig in the negative, so you can be more open, open about, if there's a negative, I'm not going to slander the negative. Yes, there was big negatives,
I
Well,
agree, but where we differ is the position on Afghanistan, because I think they did need to do that, and the reason that it failed was because of the coup and the USSR's collapse and the fact that they were in the process of collapse already at that point.
Where did you think it started, this collapse? With Nikita
With
Khrushchev?
Khrushchev, yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, de-Stalinization.
I mean, you have to think about it. It's just in the numbers as well. Like before Khrushchev, the Soviet Union was entirely self-sufficient in terms of agriculture, but by the time Khrushchev came around, they were actually importing Western grain to be able to fulfill their obligations towards their own citizens.
Yeah, and he had a lot of wacky policies, especially agrarian policies, and the Socialism Betrayed book by Kieran and Kenny or whatever. It's in, I don't know where they're from. They might be Americans, I don't know, but it talks about some of the mistakes that Khrushchev made. It's a really good book, and I agree with you. I don't think we need to implement the Soviet Union version 2.0 or the American Soviet Union, but it was a necessary experiment that taught future communists lessons that have allowed them to, like, if you look at China, if you look at the inter-party debates of the CPC, they are constantly weighing what the Soviet Union did, looking at what worked, what didn't, and adapting it to their own conditions. And that's why they're the most advanced country in the world today. And now, and that's another example of how Putin's moving closer to them. He's building relations with these communist countries. And socialist countries, because they have the same kind of foreign policy stance and opposition to the U.S.
Yeah. U.S., sorry guys, but you are the most evil one now.
Oh, yeah, no, we know. We're well aware. That's why we're communists. We're trying to fix it.
But what is the plan for you guys? Make a revolution in America?
Well, you don't make revolution. Revolution, comes from the masses. But what the party's job is to give that revolution theory, systematicity, and guidance, to be the vanguard of the revolution and show the people the way to construct a better society, just like the Bolsheviks did, which was a heroic historic role that they played for Russia and for the world.
Yep. Is it not better than to separate from America, like in one state? Like, for example, like Texas. Take Texas or something.
Okay.
No, we're not going to go down the path of Soviet Union dissolution. That's ridiculous.
Balkanization wouldn't solve anything.
I don't know.
Yeah. Look at Yugoslavia. They were much better as a unified socialist republic than they are now. The Balkans can't stop fighting each other. You got all these ethno-nationalist groups.
Yes.
It's a disaster.
Balkan's crazy, man. I go every year to vacation Balkan. Well, the problem is what I told you before. Then you need one strong leader, like Tito.
Yeah.
When Tito unalive, everybody come. Bam.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree that poor leadership has led
But
to...
strong leader also means secret service, unaliving here and there, put in prison people who have a different opinion. You know what I mean?
Not always. That's when you're under the attack from U.S. imperialism, which Russia has been in pretty much every point in their modern history, other than even then they were under attack from the U.S., but the U.S. was successful in pillaging their economy. Like, they were trying to infiltrate the country at every turn. The CIA was. So if you don't have your own intelligence apparatus, how do you fight that? How do you fight the CIA without a KGB?
No, I know you need KGB. You need these people. But they go too far with suppressing individuals' opinion. Tito did, Stalin did, Khrushchev did, Lenin did.
Well, every country that was involved in World War II became, a military dictatorship at the time. That wasn't unique to Stalin's Russia. And without that, you would have had Yahtzee infiltrators running around the country and, sabotaging what they were doing, which was industrializing and preparing themselves to defeat the Germans and the Axis.
No, but later on too, with Khrushchev, with all these guys. You have the same problem.
There's always going to be excesses of any state, but like we're saying, the capitalist state is much worse. And, Putin is, I don't want to call him like he's unique. You know, Putin's unique. He's
the best leader Russia ever had, I tell you.
You think he's better than Stalin?
Wartime, Stalin far more better than Putin. Putin is too soft on this, but economically wise,
If Putin was in World War II, dude, it would take like 20 years to beat the Yakuza.
he will be slow on the draw, I tell you. But,
yeah, and you would probably sacrifice like 3 times the amount of men to do it. Okay, like let's be real here. Stalin was probably the greatest leader in Russian history, maybe ever in the world. So let's just put a cap on that.
No,
I would say number one.
Wartime. Yes, a lot of my family will agree with you guys.
Dude, Putin has to deal with these oligarchs every single day, and yeah, he technically controls a lot of them, but he still has to listen to them. Stalin didn't listen to no damn oligarchs.
No. Problem Stalin. He listened to nobody, only Sukov.
No, he listened to the people. The people sent him letters directly.
Bratan, I swear, if he listened to people, he will be a little bit different.
No, he did listen to the people.
But it make him good.
That was the reason why he had such
make him bad,
repression.
you know? He was totally psycho, and this make him very good wartime leader, he not bullshit. But Putin, he's too soft, but he's not wartime. Putin, not wartime, but he's for freedom, he is for economic very good, he's very good outside policy. Look how many he does his best to try not war. Guys, please don't war.
Right?
Guys. Что? Yeah.
Calling Stalin like a repressor or a major repressor, I think it's a big mistake, because Stalin, the reason that he did all these really harsh programs to industrialize the country and to rein in all the bureaucrats is because he was listening directly to the people. He was trying to use the people's energy to turn on to the bureaucracy and say, listen, you're going to listen to the peasantry and the workers, or you're out of a job.
And
that was his whole policy.
And he was of the workers too, obviously. And before he died, he had plans to democratize. You know, when the war was over, he wanted to put more power in the hands of the Soviets and directly in the hands of the workers. Yep. And unfortunately, he died before those policies could be implemented. And we got Khrushchev, who I would say sowed the seeds of the eventual dissolution. But the people who Stalin suppressed were, especially as Americans, we know this because the archives were opened up to us in the 90s, and we got more access to information. A lot of the people who the Red Scare propagandists and American media told us that Stalin had unalived for, you know, just because he was this crazy madman, were actually people who were collaborating with Germany.
Or intellectual bourgeoisie who sided with the West.
Right.
And specifically within the context of what you're talking about, as it relates to any country in the world, if you say you're going to take certain actions against the government, things are going to be done to you. And and for the most part, for most of those countries, that was the only extent to which it would actually apply. And it wouldn't apply to this sort of like cultural policing of what you can and can say within daily life.
Muted myself this time. No, this was happening actually. But can you say it was all Stalin or maybe Beria? Was it the local NKVD? Because it's a big country, you cannot say Stalin did. He was on his desk. Okay, this guy Olga Faranovga in some small town. She says something. Let's analyze her. And of course not. It's also NKVD and other people. Same.
Yeah.
It's a
there
big,
were
big country.
Excesses, like during the collectivization process, a lot of excesses.
Wait, what somebody said? Man, I don't know how you guys do this, man. Read and speak. How you supporting Stalin, brach? I swear you are innocent. You know how Keshu, how many? Yeah, I know how many people die. Stalin, Beria, Gulag. Yeah, Gulag. You know the Russian word for Gulag, guys?
Do we know about the gulags? Yeah, we want them here in
the
US
Russian
so we
word,
can put
because gulag,
Wall Street
we
in
will
them.
not use it in Russia. You not say gulag.
It's an acronym, I think.
No, yeah, you use it because it were the kulak who put in jail, but we don't say gulag. We say lagira.
Oh.
This is why it's funny when people tell me something. I'm like, whoa, you don't even know the name. It's lagira. For next time somebody say gulag, say no, this is American propaganda. It's lagira.
All right, well, I think I'm gonna sign off for tonight.
I have to go.
I gotta go too.
Make you communist angry again.
Yes, thanks for joining us, Bratislav.
Yeah.
That was
But I
fun.
will tell you one small joke. You know the Usanka, the big hat? You know, the fur hat?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have this one with big communist logo, and I walk in church. I say, "Where's давай, show your passport, you know, and your party ID." And everybody's like, "Oh shit!" Then the priest put it on and call him an agent. Yeah, that's fucking funny. Okay, everybody, that's today. I follow you guys.
I'll follow
Sorry
you
for
back,
the bad
man.
start. It was bad
Yep,
start.
I am sorry
Good
too.
end.
I came out too aggressive. Thanks for the
It's
combo.
not a problem.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Good
today,
talking
guys.
to you guys.
Yep,
Nice
see you
day.
everyone. Thanks for joining.